Welcome to Mic Drop, the podcast where relevancy is irrelevant and we don't give a shit about your feelings.
Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's both an honor and a pleasure to bring to you a dual threat podcast today. I've got two gentlemen that are joining me. They've found time in their busy schedules to come on down to Cooper, Texas, and break bread and share some of their experiences within the canine industry. Now, as most of you know, my involvement in the dog industry is pretty significant, and what I like to do is routinely bring you glimpses and snapshots into that world, that lifestyle, and it really is a lifestyle. And I think, for a lot of you listeners out there that aren't involved or can necessarily relate to the canine industry and the dog communities that we're a part of, I find that it's both fascinating and really important to be able to bring to you guys, elements of this industry and this lifestyle that our canine officers face day in, day out, that our police officers face day in, day out, because there are a lot of misconceptions, and there's also a lot of assumptions made by people out there that are just frankly not true. And so we're going to fucking clear that up today. I've got two guys with me that I've known for a long time, and also have their own podcast, Working Dog Radio. But we're going to get right into it. I'm going to introduce both of them, and we're just going to start bouncing stuff off of each other. So my first guest has spent 23 years as an active duty police officer. He's currently the canine trainer and a former handler for a very busy department in Northeast Ohio. He was also part of the alum of being a multi-purpose canine trainer for Naval Special Warfare on the West Coast, just like yours truly. He is the owner of Van S Canine, and he's also a former strip club DJ. Please welcome Eric Stanbro.
Hey.
Appreciate you coming.
Appreciate you having me here.
I'm going to introduce the next guest when we get to him, but What I always like to kind of start off with a lightning round where we talk about just kind of a few random questions and get into the meat and potatoes, if you will, but just kind of getting your brain going, and I like to fuck with people, frankly. So one of the first things that I ask everybody is, what does your morning routine look like?
So my morning routine is 4:45 wake up. I usually have my phone on the floor next to me, use that alarm, get up, stare at my pillow for about 2 minutes, trying to convince myself that I should probably lay back down.
Is that before or after you bite it?
Yeah, right. Those are earlier. So get up 4:45, get myself kind of ready. I usually have my bag packed, and I head over to my kennel. It's about a 6-minute drive from my house to the kennel. I get dogs, break them, feed them if I'm going to feed them in the morning at all, load them up in my van, and I head north to the city I work in. It's about 30-minute drive, 25, 30 minutes. I go to the gym first, though. So I show up at my gym. It's one of those that I have a passcode to get in, and I have a personal trainer writes up a workout for me, and I'm by myself usually. I'm at the gym 6:30 at the most, at the latest to get started. Dogs leave them out in the van, and about 7:30 I'm in the shower, and then I head to work. Now, I have another building up in the city that I use for pet dog stuff, and it's literally across the street from my canine field. So I drop dogs at that building, drive across the street, work till 3, get off at 3, go back across the street, start working my dogs, end up getting home in bed about 11:30 at night.
Now, is that 7 days a week?
That is 7 days a week.
Now, in terms of from the time your eyes open, stare at the pillow, do you eat or drink anything prior to working out?
Sometimes, yes. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know the science behind that. Mm-hmm. There are times in the morning I'll get up and I am famished, and I'll grab a banana, a protein bar, and a couple of hard-boiled eggs, and I'll eat those before I work out. And then sometimes I do that exact same thing right after I work out. Yeah.
But in terms of drinking supplements, coffee, you don't really fuck with any of that?
Monster energy drinks.
Fueled by Monster.
I'm probably, probably eating the insides of my gut out. My wife hates it.
Shit, there's no probably.
Right, yeah. A lot of water. And I just started taking those amino acids for recovery.
Yeah.
BCAAs, I think they're called, or something.
Branch chain amino acids.
Just started taking those in the morning. Other than that, a lot of water. Lots of water.
Yeah, that's good shit.
And then beer at night.
Yeah, that's a busy fucking routine. One of the things that it seems like so many, most people that come on here get up early, and I'm always the one guy saying like, fuck, I don't get up that early. I mean, I don't wake up at 9, but for me, it just always fucks me up. But anyway, that's good shit. What is your, of all of the things that you do, if you have the time, which doesn't sound like you have a whole lot of time, but when you do, what is your favorite pastime activity?
We live on a lake, and I love wakeboarding, getting out on the boat, just cruising around, even skiing. Wakeboarding is pretty fun. I'm 48, almost 49 years old.
That's a hell of a workout, right?
It is. If you don't do it enough each time, your lower back gets pretty sore. So it's a pretty good workout. Yeah. I'm dumb. I try a bunch of dumb crap. So I wear a helmet because I'm trying stuff that a 49-year-old is not supposed to do. Yeah. For an example, a couple Sundays ago, I had about 2 hours in between stuff. So went out wakeboarding and just jumping back and forth, and jumped and caught a front edge of my board and slammed so hard on my face that I turned my eyelids inside out, and my left binding ripped out of the board.
Jesus.
And my wife just shakes her head at me.
You didn't fucking injure yourself?
No, I got lucky. I don't know. God, I mean, I've been probably, now that concussions is a big thing, I probably had 10 concussions from wakeboarding.
Shit. God damn.
I got in a motorcycle accident years ago with a pretty significant head injury, and so that's why I wear the helmet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as they say, if you're going to be dumb, you got to be hard. Right?
Oh yeah, might as well.
Yeah. What's your favorite '80s sitcom?
Ooh, that's a good question. '80s, because I love '80s sitcom. I was really into the Michael J. Fox ones.
Family Ties.
Family Ties. I really like that one.
Different Strokes.
No. Well, I like Different Strokes. Different Strokes is all right. That's early '80s though.
Yeah.
But what you talking about, Willis? I like Different Strokes. That was all right.
Yeah.
Up until
Family Ties.
Up until the last couple years, I was a TV junkie.
No shit.
I make no bones about it. I spent a lot of time watching TV, and my wife would yell at me every month about the cable bill, because everyone knows how cable prices went up. And so I said, fine, screw it.
Yeah.
I can do it.
Yeah.
Get rid of cable. That sucked for a bit. But now, and I have a Fire Stick. I'm telling you, I'm in front of the TV 2 hours a week now, maybe at the most. That's
the one thing I for sure I don't do hardly any of is fucking watch TV. I mean, I'll have the news on like as background noise sometimes if I'm doing shit, but I like to sit down and watch shit. I don't do it either. But one thing I love to ask anybody that's in a tactical profession whatsoever in terms of pistols and rifles and rounds, but what do you think is the most practical police service pistol and the round, both brand and caliber? Just what's your opinion on that?
When I first came in the job, we had Smith & Wesson 4506. I never. A lot of people had problems. I never had a single problem with my 4506. Not one malfunction in all the years that I had it. I actually shot and killed a guy in '99 with that pistol, so I had a pretty special bond with that gun.
You still have it?
No, we ended up turning them in, and I was riding my motorcycle once with a custom holster, and I stopped at a traffic light, and it was gone. The holster was turned upside down. So I went back, and it had fallen out. I found it.
You don't work for the FBI and dance backflips.
I don't, no. And it scraped the entire side of the gun up and everything. I probably should have kept it, but I didn't. Yeah. The downside of that weapon was 8 rounds.
Yeah.
So we went to Glocks in the probably 2000, somewhere around there. Yeah. I like them. I like Glocks for police work. I think they work pretty well. We had Glock 40s for a long time. Now I'm a pretty good pistol shot, being on SWAT for years and a lot of pistol shooting. The 40, I never had a problem with it, but they claimed it was too snappy for some folks and everything. And we just went to 9s not too long ago.
Do you have a favorite round in terms of brand and
no,
grain weight?
Not really.
Yeah.
I was a sniper for a while on the SWAT team, and we always used the Bowtail hollow points. I like that distance shooting stuff. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I didn't have to eat gas or anything like that. That was always cool. When they're making the entries, I'm like, boy, that looks like it sucks.
Yeah.
From 100 yards away in my scope.
Yeah. Yeah. No fucking shit. That's good stuff. I'm a big fan of Glocks. I like a 9 round just because I like to be able to carry more of them. I mean, 40, 45, 9, 357 SIG, whatever. To me, like at this point with technology being what it is, with expanded rounds, whether they're bonded or full metal or jacketed hollow points rather, to me there's such a nuanced difference in terms of diameter, whether you're talking 9 or 45 at that point. Like I'd rather have more rounds, you know. But so I'm a big fan of the 9 myself. But
I think, didn't I hear one time? Are you a 38 guy? Do you have a revolver? Like
well, I mean, I wouldn't say that I carry it religiously. What I do, I'm a big 2 is 1, 1 is none kind of guy. I'm not a backup gun fan per se. Having said that, not on my person, but without a doubt, you won't catch me in a vehicle without one both in my waist and one that I can grab really fucking fast that's not in my waist, so that if somebody comes to the window, they get a hefty fucking surprise. But for that frame, my preference is just a little J-frame Ruger 357, the LCR, with a nasty fucking buffalo bore. I think it's 158 grain hollow point in it that's pretty fucking quick, but it's only out of a 1 3/4 inch barrel. So, but even with that, it's still I think like 15 or 1600 velocity. So it's pretty gnarly. But
years ago when I was working undercover, I went through a training class, and there was a guy from ATF talking, and he had been doing undercover stuff for ATF for years, and he was in 2 shootings inside vehicles.
Yeah.
And he shot the guys with a revolver, and ever since then, he was talking the story. You're not going to, the clothing isn't going to eat it.
Yeah.
He touched them, put it right up on them, smoked them dudes.
Yeah.
Because stuff got real gnarly in there. I never forgot that. I always thought, man, that's a good vehicle gun for sure.
And to me, something like that, like, it's a 5-shot. Like, I don't need fucking 30 rounds. Like, it's dudes at your window. Like, if you're not fixing it in 5 rounds, you're not going to fix it in 30 probably either. But I mean, I'm a big proponent of that. That and just when it's, especially if it's inside the waist or even outside the waist, if even being left-handed, that waist belt and clothes over it, trying to fiddle fuck with that and grab it while somebody's trying to carjack you or whatever, to me is a bad fucking spot to be in. But what's your favorite cereal?
Raisin Bran.
Fucking A. That's the old guy talking. You need the fiber.
You do. Fiber and some sugar.
Oh, you're going to say grape nuts. What the fuck?
What?
Ted's over here with this fucking mind blown. Raisin Bran, I can't hang out with you anymore.
That's right. You wonder why
you eat fucking Lucky Charms. Ted's not interested.
It's not colored. I like that. It's just one color.
Yeah, no, I got
Raisin.
Oh, so it's like that, huh?
Yeah, right.
It's got to be one color.
Yeah.
That's what it is. All right. So, what's your most embarrassing moment? And this it can be whether it's work related or not.
Most embarrassing moment. I don't have very many.
Yeah, you don't get embarrassed either.
I don't.
That's
or you're
the
just
problem.
That good. No, I've had the usual de-pantsing, getting guys messing with you. Yeah. I've been years ago out on our boat and tubing, which old guys are still not supposed to be doing that, and rip like tons of people around. You fly off, it rips your shorts off, and your shorts sink to the bottom of the lake.
Yeah, and then you're shit out of luck.
Yeah, and you got to try to figure that out.
I mean, like, is there? I mean, I would think that in a 23-year storied career at a department, such as the one that you've been at, and for the listener, by the way, there's a reason we're not mentioning it, and we won't mention it, so it's not by accident. But in terms of like, whether being embarrassed, you pulled somebody over and totally fucked it up or whatever. Like, I'm always curious to hear cops' stories like that, because I know in the military, like, we do some boneheaded shit sometimes. Even the most elite tier 1 guys have some pretty funny fucking stories of forgetting things or fucking things up and whatever. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind?
Yeah. So we were early on the SWAT team. This will tell you how long ago it was. We had just pistols and shotguns when I got on the team. And within the first year, we got MP5s. Ooh, MP5s, right? Everything's great. So we had MP5s for a while. Then we start getting the AR platforms. And at the time, the state was teaching this storage condition that you used to keep the weapon in, and I don't remember the mechanics of it, but the last thing you did was pulled the trigger on that rifle, and that put it in your storage position. So I'm standing there, and I was always pretty thorough in safety and everything like that, and there was something going on with the rifle. It wasn't I don't even remember. There was a double feed or a failure to eject, that a pretty bad one. And we're working through it, and the lieutenant's on one side and the sergeant's on the other, and we're standing there working through it, and they pull the charging handle back, clear it, send it, and then pull the trigger. Yeah. I pull it back. It grabbed the round, and then threw the round back in. I didn't even look. Pulled it out, boom, fired 2 inches from the sergeant's foot right into the ground. First and only time I ever had
brain policy is pulling the trigger being part of the fight.
It was stupid. After that, it was it. That was over. But they were teaching that. Whoever the firearms guy for the state of Ohio, the main dude was at the time, they were teaching the storage position. Yeah. And I don't even remember how it all worked, but after that, it was lock back, clear an open chamber.
Yeah. To me, it reminds me, I remember there was I think it was Marines that used to do, and I'm not picking on Marines here, but fuck if the shoe fits. And this was like, I think back in the 80s, but there were certain groups where, basically if you were doing like an expedited or a hasty draw, that you grab the gun and start pulling like you'd start shooting rounds into the goddamn ground as they were bringing it up, like like I can't remember who told me that, but it was a Marine. I remember that, but anyway, I was just like sitting there thinking to myself, like, why in the fuck would you ever do that? But
that's some homemade shit. Somebody figured that out, and they're like, yeah, let's do that.
That's fucking.
I guarantee you, somebody shot themselves in the foot and they stopped that,
or the fucking thigh.
You want to go in the garage and do karate? Yep.
No shit. Biggest oh shit moment you've been through. It sounds like that may check that fucking box too.
That was pretty bad, but we had I've been in a couple shootings, and so those things are always kind of the second shooting wasn't so much of an oh shit because I had time. The guy fired, and then it was a few, like 30 seconds before he actually presented himself. The first shooting I was in, it was a robbery at a bar. I was right down the street when they put it out. This guy had robbed this bar 2 or 3 times. So what he would do is sit by the dumpster, and they would come out at the end of the day to throw the trash in, and he would put a gun at him, take him inside, and rob him. Well, this time they dialed 911 and put the phone down on the bar, so we knew it was a robbery. We pull up, me and another guy, and then another K-9 guy who I wasn't in K-9 then. All 3 of us were SWAT dudes, so we pull up. K-9 guy goes one way, my partner goes to the front door, and I go to the side door. And I walk around the side door, and the door's open. And I get on my radio, and I got my gun out, and I just say, I got an open door here, and he comes out. Stand there with a pistol.
Pointed at you?
Yeah, that was, well, he had it down here, and he starts to bring it up. He had it down to the side, I should say. Starts to bring it up. That was an oh shit, because it was like, oh shit, he's right there.
Yeah.
We were about 7 or 8 feet away from each other. And I moved to my left. As soon as he pulls, I moved and I fired. And he had that 45-06 then. I fired, and as soon as I fired, I slipped in the gravel. So the big oh shit part of that is not only is he there, I'm looking at the sky. So I fired around, I'm looking up at the sky. I shake it off. I expected him to come over and execute me. I jump up. He's laying down. I had hit him in the right side of his chest, and that 145 round, man, picked him up and slammed him down on the ground, knocked the gun out of his hand, and then the round jumped over and severed his aorta. But
so just the one shot?
Just the one shot. That's all I got off. It was firefall.
Yeah, and
fast.
And he died from that?
Yeah, he died. He bled out there. All that aorta blood come pouring out of his out of his mouth, and my partner come running around, and I remember because you had to decock those 45-06s. I remember just standing there staring at it, and my partner Joe comes running around. He's like, decock it or put the safety on, because I'm like that, and looking for the guy's gun. Turns out he brought a BB gun.
No shit.
So that was his mistake.
Jesus fuck. I mean, you hear about that all the time. I mean, to me, I don't know how you can bring that, as whatever. I mean, whether if it's just a deterrent or trying to use it to hold shit up or whatever. But like, why the fuck would you point that at a cop is absolutely fucking beyond me. It just I'll never fucking understand it. But
yeah, we never got that answer from him.
Yeah, no shit. I mean, but Christ, it's in the news all the time. Yeah. Like kids getting fucking shot because they're pointing fucking water guns and squirt guns and BB guns and shit that look like the real thing. It's like, how can you be that goddamn dumb? But anyway, all right, so that's the lightning round. Before we get into just kind of some of the background that led into your police officer career, you told me to remind you of that you hated me before we met, or something to that effect.
So
no shit, there we were.
Right, there we are. Okay, now we're bros. But so I, being my age, and if you and listening to your other podcasts from the teen guys that have been on here, I grew up the same way as all of them, as in I've read every teen guy book that ever existed, all the Marcinko, all the Vietnam area stuff, all those books, and I was really intrigued by all that. I was probably just too much of a pussy to do it, but I didn't do it. I went and tried to join the Navy. They told me I had diabetes. And then my doctor is like, you don't have fucking diabetes. so then the Filipino doctor calls me back from the Navy. He's like, oh, good news. You don't have diabetes. I'm like, and you're an idiot. Goodbye. And so I missed my window there. Yeah. But so I knew I was into that, and I'm getting into the dog stuff. And I can't remember what came first, the 60-minute piece or the book, or if it was all around the same time.
Yeah, it was within a week of each other.
And I can't remember what I did, if I read the book or if I saw the 60-minute. I think maybe I read the book first. I was like, oh, cool. So I'm reading the book, and I'm like, I'm reading it at my canine office, and I'm training dogs and everything. And man, fuck this dude. I'm like, I could do that. I could do all that stuff. Just, I just don't know anybody. Yeah. But at the time, I did know a trainer on the East Coast that worked for the company that still has the contract. And I'm seeing all that, and I'm like, man, fuck this dude. And then I was at somebody I know was at one of the police conferences that you're at, and they sent me a picture. I saw a picture of you signing books and a line of cops waiting for their book to be signed. And I'm like, you fucking idiots. You guys are fucking canine handlers. Don't wait in line for some guy to sign your book. I just being a hater.
Yeah.
And
that's good news.
Yeah. Oh, I talked all kinds of shit. So, and I texted a couple guys, get the fuck out of that line. Be a fucking man.
Good news. You're not alone.
Right. So, so fast forward, and I hadn't met you or anything like that. And then Jethro got killed. Our dog Jethro gets killed up in the city that I'm at. I almost said it. Yeah. Up in the city that I'm at, our dog gets killed. And you reached out to me through mutual friends, through Alicia and some other folks, and said, hey, we got a hold of you, forget out. But you drove from Texas to fucking Ohio. And I was like, because the guys were like, yeah, well, if he's going to come up, man, we can get Mike to be the guest speaker. I'm like, that's cool and all. I said, but the people at this fundraiser we're about to do aren't dog people. Mm-hmm. That's not who canine guys don't show up to those. It's just regular civilians. I go, most of them might not know who Mike is, but that's cool. We'll throw the SEAL thing out there. And I was like, whatever, this fucking guy. So anyways, you came up, and dude, you were the nicest guy. We had a great time. It was a nice little speech. You knew what the deal was there. We went and drank, had some fun. Then we started talking. Then I saw you at another conference, and we had a great time. And so I was like, fuck it. And in between all of that, in between me reading your book and me meeting you after Jethro gets killed, I take a leave of absence and go out and work the contract on the West Coast. Yeah. So I think the first thing I did when I got out there was take a picture of the logo, because you have in your book the company logo. Yeah. I'm like, fuck this guy, I got my own picture. So, but anyways, once I get out there and I'm working and everything, I'm like, well, I guess I can hate him less because I made it. Yeah. I made it out here, and then I ended up not staying there because it's just too unstable, that whole contract work stuff. So I boogied out of there. But after we got to meet and become friends and everything, I was definitely, and I've told everybody, I was definitely misread that whole thing. I was wrong.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I will say that if I had a nickel for every time I heard somebody say, I used to fucking hate you until I met you, like, I'm not shitting you. Like, I run into it all the fucking time. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've never met that are like, fuck you, and like I don't know what it is, but I don't know if I just rub people the wrong fucking way in certain circles or what. But I mean, like I said, I've met a ton of people that I've heard that same thing, like, oh, I thought you were a pompous, arrogant fucking prick until I actually met you. And it's like, why would you think that about somebody you don't even fucking know them? But
and I didn't even have that theory. I didn't even have the pompous, arrogant. I just had fuck this guy, I'm training dogs over here, I should have that job.
Yeah.
Pretty much, that's it. Yeah. No shame.
No, it's good shit. I mean, it's fucking funny to hear that. But anyway, so enough about hating me. As fun as that is to talk about, I always like to get, just kind of a quick background on, if you can say where you grew up, just, kind of a synopsis of your childhood, siblings, sports that you played, the family dynamic, what it was like growing up, things that that ultimately shaped you into both who you are today and more importantly, what kind of steered you in the direction of saying, what, I want to go be, a police officer and get into dogs and things like that?
Yeah, I grew up in Canton, Ohio, and lived there, growing up my whole life. And I moved to Myrtle Beach for a little while. We can get into that in a minute, but grew up there. Mother and father. I'm the oldest of three. I have a sister and a younger brother. She's 2 years behind me. He's 5 years behind me. So we're pretty relatively close in age. Grew up in the city in the northern part, kind of like just the little cookie cutter houses and nice little neighborhood on a dead end street. Played in the street. Played backyard football with all the boys. I had a pretty good childhood there. Decent. My parents are decent people. It was weird because they got divorced when I was like 23.
No shit.
Yeah, and
Did they wait for all you guys to get out of the house and they're like, fuck, I can't stand you any longer?
They had just, I talked to my mom or either my mom or dad, I can't remember, about this recently, and just like, it had run its course. We did it for a long time, and for some folks, I mean, this is going to sound weird, but, a marriage for some folks isn't a life sentence. They do it for as long as they can do it, and then, both of them have been with their current spouses longer than they were with each other, so they've kind of not erased that past, but they've done their own thing. Yeah. I grew up playing all sports, but mostly baseball. Yeah. Baseball was my thing. I thought I was pretty decent at it. But it was weird because my dad and mom were hardworking people, and they always instilled a work ethic in me. And as soon as I became 16, I wanted two things. I wanted my driver's license, and I wanted a job to pay for the insurance that they were back then in 1987 or 85 when I turned 16, insurance was like $1,000 a month for a teenage driver. It was like insane. So they're like, you got to help with this. So I get a job at McDonald's, like most people. 16 years old, working at McDonald's. I worked at McDonald's for 3 years, exactly to the day, 3 years. And this is where I made a humongous mistake. And
you demanded $15 an hour.
Right. It was $3.35 an hour, by the way, back then. Minimum wage, $3.35.
And we liked it.
Right. And we were getting nickel and dime raises, and we were like, man, I'm killing it. Yeah. Where I made the mistake was I quit all my sports to work. Yeah. I was working there 8 months, and I got promoted to crew chief. I wore a different colored polyester uniform. And I was like, fuck, I found it, man. I'm in. They're like, you're fast.
I'm going to be on fries soon.
Right, yeah. That's where the big bucks start rolling in.
A lot of people aren't going to get that.
No, right. You have to be a movie buff. But anyways, so I quit that. I didn't go to a single prom, homecoming, nothing. Yeah. I worked. God damn. I was working night shift till getting home at midnight, 1 o'clock, because I was an assistant manager. 1 o'clock in the morning, getting up at 6 for school. Miserable. My grades started dropping. I probably started at McDonald's with a 3.7, graduated with a 3 That's a significant swing.
What fucking car was worth all this? What were you driving?
Nothing. I was driving my parents' Chevy Cavalier. And then by that time, I had a Volkswagen Beetle. Yeah.
Fucking priorities.
I had a 77 Buick Regal at one point that was ginormous. Put $3 in gas in it, and that. But so I was just working, and when you work in those little communities like that, that's all is those people work there. I, messed around with a lot of girls that worked there. I climbed out some married women's windows back in the day.
Jesus Christ.
But anyways, when my kids were getting older, I told them, I said, listen, I really don't want you to have a job during school. Yeah. I would prefer you work on school. The biggest regret I have is not even so much the dances and all the social events, because this was idiotic. I would hang out with my buddies on Friday and Saturday nights till 1, 2 in the morning, and Sunday morning, I had to be there at 5 a.m. So I was going in with no sleep, sleeping, like going in, getting my inventory done, and sleeping for 20 minutes out in the thing before it opened. But I gave up baseball. Yeah. And I was decent. I'm telling you, I was decent at baseball. I don't know if I could have gone to college with it, but I don't know. I know I would have been really good at high school. I played some traveling ball, but then once I started working, man, it was over. But, and the other thing, though, the other flip side of that was my dad. I always remember this, and my brother and sister said they never got this talk, but my dad, always remember, in the basement of our house, in the back room by the workbench, talking to me about credit score and how important your credit is, right? And how important it is to have good credit. I don't even know how we got on the conversation. I have never forgot that. Yeah. And I've always had 750, 770, 760, 800 credit scores because of all the way back through then. And it can get you in trouble, but it definitely instilled something. Yeah. That I always remember that, and I don't know why I remember that, but it's why I work as much as I do to keep, so I don't have those problems. Yeah. Right?
Did you grow up with dogs?
No, that's the thing. My mother hated dogs.
Easy Freud.
Right. Yeah. my mother hated dogs.
No shit.
So I remember us having a dog when I was like 3 or 4 that ran away. And we never had a dog. Away. Right. Yeah, probably. Took to a farm.
Yeah, damn dog ran off.
And we never had dogs after that. Now, my sister ended up getting a couple dogs when she was about 16 or 17. Yeah. And I was a couple years older. They were there for a while, and my mom begrudgingly. But no, I never.
Yeah. What during that kind of transformation period of working, whatever, what was there a catalyst or kind of a light switch moment for you that catapulted you into wanting to be a cop?
Actually it is. It's kind of strange. So I was working in bars, right? I had a fake ID, was working.
It's always the cops that do all the...
Right. I had a fake
ID.
I was bartending. I was 19 years old, and I was supposed to be 21 and everything. And I living that bar life. I was going to college, and I quit. I literally drove, this is so bad, I drove 20 minutes up to college and couldn't find a parking spot and got so mad that I quit at the end of that semester over a fucking parking spot. Right? I just was burned out. I like this nightlife, I'm going to have fun and everything. I didn't get into drugs or anything like that, but the things that go along with working in bars with women and all that. And I was kind of enjoying it. Then I moved to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And I was working, because I was doing a little part-time DJ work in Ohio. I go down there, I start working at the Crazy Horse, which is a strip club. I go down, as you should guess, the Crazy Horse is a strip club. So those of you who are not on this side of the country don't really go to Myrtle Beach very much, but it's just a straight-up tourist town. Tourism, there's beach shops, bars, and titty clubs. That's it. Yeah. So I'm there working and making a killing in the money, but I'm like, I don't know, no one retires from this, right? There's nobody retiring from this. And I moved back home a couple times, back and forth. The reason why I kept moving down there was because weather in Ohio sucks. Yeah. So I'd go home, like, fuck this, and back down to Myrtle Beach. And a buddy of mine, his name is Mark, I see him running one day. I'm back home visiting, and I'm like, what are you doing, man? And he's like, I got hired by the State Highway Patrol here in Ohio. I'm getting ready to go to the academy. And I don't know why, man, that clicked something in my head, and I was like, I think I want to fucking do that. Yeah. That, like, it's weird, man. Like, I never even thought of becoming a cop until he said that, and then he went to the academy, and then I saw him, and I was like, yeah, man, I think that's it. Yeah. That's the deal.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that, in having interviewed a number of people and just, knowing a lot of guys from the military, there's a lot of parallels between military folks and cops in terms of such a variety of backgrounds and what drives and motivates them to do what they do. And to me, that's one of the most fascinating things about getting to do this is, getting to interview, wide swaths of different people is finding out the why. I mean, to me, like that's probably the most fascinating aspect of, of a lot of these stories and interviews that I've been lucky enough to be a part of is that. And so, to me, like that's kind of random, but it's like that for most people. It seems like, there's some people that start out saying, well, I wanted to do it since I was 7 years old. But with most people, like there's a pivotal moment, just like there is in business or any of the rest of your personal life. It's all about the pivot. But, so from there, once that kind of clicked, was it just kind of a straight shot for you to go right in there? Or?
No, that's so when Mark goes in there, I'm about 22, and I put myself through the police academy, paid for it myself, and then I I started getting jobs at these for free. People don't know this. A lot of people, there are cops that work for no money, small little burgs. What happens is as soon as you graduate the academy, the clock starts ticking, and you got to get that commission. You don't want to have to go back through school. So you get that. I come out, I get a job at this place called Delroy. It's a tiny little lake town, and one traffic light, speed trap type place. And I did that for free for like a year and a half. And then I'm working a couple part-time departments. I didn't get hired at my full-time department until I was 26 years old. So it took a while. And that's the thing. You might want to do the police work, but it's hard to get in, especially if you're trying to work at a bigger department, which I always encourage people to go as big as possible because there's more opportunity. Yeah. But you show up at the test and there's 5,000 people there to take the test, and maybe they hire 100 people. Yeah. And you're looking around and you're seeing a dude in there that's 400 pounds. But what if that guy can test and scores a 97 and you score a 96 and a half? There's 30 people between the two of you. He's never going to get hired, but he's occupying a space. And that stuff gets really frustrated. The weirdos you see at those tests, man. And so it takes a while. I mean, there's guys I know that hit it just right. Yeah. Especially military guys come out of the military and they bring a lot to the table. I didn't. Yeah. I was a strip club DJ. That actually cost me a job at a police department.
Yeah. I mean, to me, there's some value in that.
There is value. I can communicate.
for me,
right? I can communicate. Yeah. And if you would have saw me back then, I was a little fat ass and still, still could talk some game. Yeah. But
that's fucking priceless.
So it was 26 before I finally got in, and I got hired at the police department I'm at a year after I took the test. So I'm working bullshit jobs up until that point, part-time police work and doing side jobs, directing traffic and shit.
To me, that's an important element for for the listener that has no involvement or relation to police work at all. And again, like I love having guests on that can highlight certain elements of our society that that a lot of people don't know about that they should. And to me, that kind of highlights one of them is that there are a lot of cops out there that have busted their ass to get in the position that they're in. Now, granted, some guys, like you said, hit it just right, but most of them, have tested and put time in and volunteered, and it's not like it's the fucking Boy Scouts where you're trying to get a fucking merit badge. I mean, like it's dangerous work. You put your life on the line, and I think that warrants people's not necessarily interest, but at least their knowledge of the element of police work that exists, that's a component of. So to me, again, that's just one thing that I think a lot of people don't know that they should. But kind of fast forwarding, so now you've got you're in with the main big varsity, we'll call it, department where you're actually being paid and whatever. Can you walk us through kind of just the chronological timeline of from that point until where you're at now and some of the stories along the way?
Yeah, sure. I get hired in May of 1996, May 6, 1996. I get hired with a guy, there's 6 of us. I'm second in seniority in the group. The guy who's number 1 in seniority, his name is Brian Rochon. We get hired in May. We hit the streets end of June. All of us had been through the academy. One guy, he's shipped off to the academy. In July, Brian gets shot and killed in the line of duty. First time they'd had a guy killed in forever. That really, it didn't scare me away or anything like that, but it was like, holy fuck, man.
Sobering.
And somebody I knew, and hell, we were so new that most of the guys didn't even know him. I was a pallbearer at his funeral, but I tell you what, though, I was like, this is it for me, man, though. Even that happened, it steeled my reserve. And that's the thing about police work. If you need a job and it's got good benefits and all that, getting in the police department is a mistake. Yeah. You'll burn out. You have to be, it's got to be something you want to do. And then if you get in there and it's not right for you, you should bounce. But anyways, it really fueled it. So right away, I mean, I'm in there short time, busy city, rocking and rolling. My buddy gets killed, and everything that goes along with that. And we keep working. I try out for SWAT. Now, SWAT there is part-time. So you work the road or whatever your assignment is, and you work SWAT. So I get on SWAT in November of 97. So got my year on. I'm there for a little while.
You got onto SWAT after being there a year?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, they changed that a few times. I think it's 5 years now or 3 years. But back then they changed it because they wanted to get certain people on the team. Yeah. This is why they've changed it a couple times for that exact reason.
So it's good to know that there's no politics in
No. So, and it never works out.
Yeah.
The guys that they changed it for before lasted a year and they quit.
Strangely enough.
Right. So I get in 97, and man, I loved it. I love SWAT. I was on it for 14 and a half years, working the patrol division, working SWAT, having a good old time. I'm a type A personality. I like, high speed stuff. I have a lot of fun. And so I'm still working the road, working SWAT. In 2001, I get tagged to go to the Vice unit, which is undercover narcotics, hookers, alcohol problems,
which you're a natural fit for.
Of course, hookers and blow. So, so I did that for 4 years, almost exactly to date, 4 years. And then when I came out, I had tested for canine, and I was coming out in 2005, and got selected for the dog unit.
But before we jump into that, any cool stories from the Vice unit that you can share that that our listeners would love to hear? Because I know I would.
I got a ton. So those 4 years were pretty amazing. And it's weird because we're working informants. I bought some dope undercover, but not a ton. I wasn't in there with Pablo Escobar or anything. At the time, the Vice unit did a lot of the street level stuff. Then there was a county metro unit that did bigger, and then there's FBI task force that do the big stuff. So I work in informants, but we pick up hookers, and they're not like girls walking around in lingerie. These are nasty ass crackheads that are getting in your car having shit their pants.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No. We get them. I could get them to.
I guarantee you, there's somebody somewhere that likes that.
Right? Yeah. Oh, of course. Of course.
There's a fetish for everybody out there.
I used to work a couple of the girls as informants, and then ask them. So tell me about some of your clients and the baby diaper ones, and stomping on their balls with high heel shoes and stuff like that. But
is that weird?
No. That part, I said that was normal. Yeah. But one of the things in our city, and it's not germane to our city, of course, is so back in the 90s when I got hired, there was a law called importuning. And importuning meant it was illegal for a person to approach another person of the same sex that they didn't know and ask them for sexual favors. So
it's not illegal if they're opposite sex?
Correct. And I remember thinking, boy, that can't last. That law doesn't sound right. So a guy could not walk up to another guy and say, "Hey, you want to suck my dick?"
Yeah.
But a guy could ask a girl that, and it was cool. It was an M4, an arrestable offense.
No shit.
And
who fucking came up with that shit?
So we used to go when I was a rookie. Before I got on the street, they made you go out with Vice, and we'd have to go into the parks and get those guys doing that stuff, and arrest them. Well, they got rid of that. The problem is, and I got to explain to everybody, these stories I'm going to tell you here real quick have nothing to do with the fact that it's gay guys. I don't care what you're doing. The problem is what we have in the parks are guys pulling their cocks out, broad daylight, families walking around, jacking off, sexual stuff in the open, or right inside the bushes, noon, during the day. People walking with their kids, guys got their dicks out. It's a big problem.
Yeah.
So when I'm in Vice, I got to work undercover, and a couple times a year, you got to go in and do those park sweeps. I mean, it's a really nice family park, and you got these guys parked over on the sides with their dicks out, blowing each other and everything else like that. So, again, if they would just go somewhere, nobody cares. You know what I mean? It's a whole thing where you drive by each other, and as you're passing, you look at each other, and you tap your brakes. Tap, 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 tap. And if the other person taps, somebody will turn.
Do you still do that just for fun?
Of course. Go somewhere, right? If you're go somewhere. Because all of these guys that we would get in these stings were married.
Yeah.
Every
one
one
of them. No shit.
And so there's me and a couple guys, one other dude that could do the talking. And so we would go out for like a 2 or 3 day period, usually like at lunchtime.
It sounds like you're saying you're kind of a natural at it. Is that what you're saying?
Right. I could get guys to show me their dicks. And so what we would go over there, and I'm telling you, it's fish in a barrel.
Yeah.
You just pull up, and my goal was to make the surveillance guys laugh as much as I could. And I'd be wearing a wire or a tape or whatever, tape recorder. And you just go over and just nod at the guy, give him a head nod, and he'd nod back at you. I mean, why is this dude sitting in his car next to the bathroom in the park at lunch? He's not eating lunch. He's just sitting there. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty obvious. And so then they would roll their window down, and I'd roll my window down, and They'd start, so you dating? What are you looking for? And I'd get out and start talking to them. And then eventually they'd either pull their dicks out there, or we would drive somewhere and they would pull it out, but usually right there. Yeah. And I would make a comment, that's a nice one. I go, that's a nice one. That was the bus signal. That was a nice one. So then they would follow me to a parking lot. Me.
Oh, of course.
So, hey, nice cock.
Yeah.
So we would park.
Feed it.
And then as soon as we would park, the guys would come in and arrest them.
Well, so now in those instances, then are they being arrested or charged and arrested with that? What was it?
No, it was importuning was ruled unconstitutional.
But that's what you're busting them for.
Yeah, basically we're getting them for indecent exposure.
Yeah. I mean, to me, like, here's the thing that I don't get, and it is dovetailed onto the prostitution thing, is that in and of itself, like, to me, I agreed, who gives a shit? I don't know why that would even exist, but to me, like, the indecent exposure and shit at a park, yeah, absolutely, like, that's fucking terrible and should be dealt with. I don't understand the importuning thing, but I also, just from your time in Vice, like, what I'm curious of is, because I know there's similarities in the military in terms of how impacted you are by or whether or not you believe in the mission, and so to me, like, I don't understand why prostitution is illegal. I mean, to me, of all the things, especially under the context of, say, why is it okay to, take porn as an example. Mm-hmm. Like, you could start a porn production company and you could pay women to fuck you on camera, and that's perfectly legal because you have a license to do that. But to go do it, like, that makes no fucking sense. Like, to me, who gives a shit either way? But to me, one of the problems that I think law enforcement across the board runs into is shit like that pisses people off, that's inconsistent, and it's one of those things, it's like, who gives a fuck, But when I see the amount of time and resources and manpower that gets put into things like that, I'm baffled by shit like that when there's so many other problems that it seems like it could be focused on and dealt with. What I'm curious of is that, were things like that, or were there any elements of shit like that where you were like, man, I don't who cares? Like, I disagree. Like, did you see any of that in the police department that impacted your performance?
Yeah, I mean, there was a storefront that one of the majors of the department would drive by on his way to work every day.
Yeah.
And the mayor too. And the name of it was called Only Sexy Things. That drove them fucking crazy. Yeah. That sign said Only Sexy Things. And it was a lingerie, and they would have lingerie shows in there. Yeah. And they were obsessed about it. And I'm like, meanwhile, we got drug robberies. We have a lot more serious problems fueled by narcotics than anything else. Mm-hmm. And we had to spend a bunch of resources going after that place because they didn't like. If they would have just put up Acme something, they would have never. Yeah, Acme, it could have said Acme HJ on it. Yeah. They would have never figured it out. I hated doing the it wasn't Backpage back then, but we get the escort services. Mm-hmm. I hated doing those up in the thing because those girls, for the most part, weren't the super drug fueled girls. Mm-hmm. The street prostitutes, we didn't have a quota to get them. They were really because they don't want to see them. Nobody wants to see that. Those girls, walking around taking shits on the side of the road and everything else they do.
Unless you're into that.
Unless you're really into it, right? Yeah. You put them in a baby pool. The park stuff was a pain in the ass, but so when we weren't doing it, I lived by that park and I would go run and I'd run through there, and the amount of traffic of guys going through there, and then they would say stuff to you and things like that, which I don't care. But what happened is then I would see them, even when I was off duty, running through there, jacking off, Yeah. So that part did have a purpose. It was funny because I never had a guy I couldn't get. Every one of the guys, like, I had this white van.
You might want to keep that too.
Right. I had this white van.
Put it on a t-shirt.
And there would be 3 or 4 guys lined up next to each other, and I would leave with the one guy, come back 15 minutes later,
Yeah.
to the next one. They must have thought this is the suckinest
filthiest
dude ever.
What a
Their
whore.
only guy could never get it was a priest.
Yeah.
There was a priest that would come down there. He wore the collar and everything, and he would just want to watch.
What in the fuck?
So I'll have two quick little stories for you. The one's really visual, so I'm glad we'll have a visual. So during
out the
all
YouTube
this,
video.
we had another park that had a bathroom set way back off, and there was a lot of stuff going down in the bathrooms, and we were getting complaints because families were walking into the bathroom and there'd be two dudes, going at it. So we went over there, and we had a guy who was in the Metro unit. He was badge number 2 of his department. He didn't need to do this, right? He's a chief deputy. I mean, he's a big deal. But he's like, I'll take my turn. So he's like, I'm gonna get you to laugh. So we're out in this park in the surveillance van watching for about an hour. Dude shows up, walks past us, gives the guy sitting on the swing, gives him a look, right? Goes into the bathroom. So the major or the chief, he waits, and then he gets up and goes in there. Now, the way the bathroom is set up, you walk in and then this way into the bathroom. So we could see him in the vestibule, so to speak. I'll stand up so they can see this. So he goes in there, and you see him. What happens is the guy's acting like he's pissing, and he just turns and shows him his dick.
Yeah.
So the chief stands there like Superman. He goes, "That's a nice cock you got there, mister." Dude, I almost spit out water. I was dying. And he just standing the whole time like this. And he's like 6'6". He's giant. "That's a nice cock you got there, mister." I go, I guess that's the bus signal. Yeah. And one other one that's a good story is we had another park down by a lake that was having a lot of problems. So the park rangers, they all knew them. So they asked us to come in and help. So me and my buddy go in there. And we get back in the middle of the woods in this park. And there's a dude back there. There's a couple guys, but there's a dude back there wearing tennis shoes and short shorts. That's it. And a backpack, and he had a monkey.
Like a real monkey.
A real monkey. And we're back there, and we're trying to talk to him and see what the deal is, what's going on. And he's like, "I tell you what I would like is for you two to start going at it right here, and me and this monkey will watch. I'll tie him over there, and then I'm going to jack off." And I looked at Joe, and I'm like, "I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm an armed cop, and I'm getting the fuck out." This weirded me out. I turned and ran. I was like, "Screw this, dude." I go, "This guy, he's got this attack monkey. He's going to pull his shit out here in a minute."
The fucking Christ. Yeah. So this was all during the Vice time?
Yeah, this is all Vice time, yeah.
Jesus Christ. So, without a doubt, I'm sure we could spend hours hearing more about monkeys and nice cocks. But so,
Mister.
Moving, Mister with the Superman stance. So moving forward, so now you've put your time in on the street, and now you fast forward. You're going into the K-9 unit. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I come out of Vice in 2005. There's a little bit of delay between when I tested and when they're going to give me the dog. The dog class is going to start mid-August. Well, in between all that, I'm working with a guy named Bill, and we get tasers. Just got them, brand new. And they give us a call of a naked guy running in traffic.
What is it with naked guys?
I don't fucking know, man. Why they call me? It's not even the zone I'm working in.
It's your experience.
Right. So they tell us this guy's running in traffic, may have gotten hit by a car. So we go driving over there, and I can see an ambulance down the way, and I'm focused on that ambulance. As I'm driving by, Bill hits me and goes, "Hey, man, you passed him." So I stop, and I turn and open the door, and I look, and there's a guy. It's a black male with huge dreads, like Predator looking, like real long dreadlocks, completely naked. He's about 6'1", probably 260, 270. Covered in blood, completely naked, just sweating. And it's warm out, but not like that. So I stop, I open the car door, I get out, and I go, "Hey, man, what's going on?" And he's on me like that. He attacks. All I can do is lay back across the seats of the car and get my guard up. So I got him, my knees up, and he's on top of me, covered in blood, sweat, and him and I just start raining blows on each other in the car. I yelled on the radio, but I grabbed this radio, it wasn't on. So him and I are fighting, and I'm yelling at Bill to tase him. Tase him, tase him, tase him. Bill runs around the car, shoots him with a taser. I hear it go off. I see the guy raise up. Right? He's like, and the taser's getting him. And I'm trying to get him off. I can't move this dude. He comes down off that tasing, looks at my holster. I see him look at it, and we both go for the gun at the same time. So he's grabbed it, I grab it, and he gets it, it's coming out. I'm losing this battle because he's just pulling. And it comes out, and I'm trying to jam it down in the floor, and he's getting tased again. He gets tased like 3 times, but he's fought through it. The first time worked, the rest is not working. So he's fighting through it, and I slide his hands. His hands are covered in blood. I end up having blood in my socks, my underwear, in my eyelids, in my mouth. I pull the gun out. I come up, I put it to his head. I'm about to pull the trigger, and he disappears. Bill and a fireman ripped him out of the car. So I holster, jump up, jump on top of him. This whole time he's going, I love you, I love you, I love you, over and over again. Definitely in a psychotic episode.
Yeah.
So we get him down, I get him handcuffed. As soon as I get him handcuffed, he stands right up. I'm over one shoulder, I got his head turned sideways, he should not be able to move. Kicks me right off of him, stands up, and I just start wailing him, fighting, take him back down to the ground. And I'm holding him down. I get him on his side. I got his legs turned up. He gets drive stunned with a taser a bunch of times. And he keeps trying to fight. We're just holding him down for him to stop, and then we're going to put him in the ambulance. Well, he dies. When we finally get up, they put him in the ambulance, and we're like 6 blocks from the hospital. He dies in that time period. The cause of death is excited delirium. Basically, he was like 107 degrees. His body fried.
Was he hopped up on all kinds?
No, that's the problem. The problem was he wasn't on what he was supposed to be on. He has schizophrenic and all that.
But he got hit by a car.
He was running forward, as we found out later, full steam, diving headfirst into cars as they were 30, 35 miles an hour down the street. Straight into him, putting his head impression in the windshield.
Fucking deer.
Right. It was knocking him out.
Shit.
And then he would wake up and then run into another one.
Jesus fuck.
Here's the thing, though. This occurred all day long. All day long, this guy was having this episode. Broke all the windows. That's where the blood was. Broke all the windows out with his arms in his house. It's a thing with these excited deliriums. Glass. They go naked because they're boiling to death. Mm-hmm. And water. His whole house was covered like squishy carpet because he was cleansing his house. No one called us. Nobody called us until he had dove into like the 3rd fucking car. He was standing on top of an old lady's car, jumping up and down. That's when they called us.
God damn.
So we could have, he would have lived if it had been an hour before that. So that almost put my whole canine thing on hold because they were looking at me for homicide and all kinds of stuff.
Because he died.
Yeah. They put me off for the entire summer. I was on administrative leave. Mm-hmm. I got really good at wakeboarding. We're talking about wakeboarding. I got really good at it. But it was super stressful. I got cleared and finally from the grand jury and all that, and I went back to work and then right into canine.
Yeah. What year was that you went into canine?
05.
So what was your take from not having grown up with dogs? Obviously, there's an interest. Was there a specific thing, or was it just like, fuck, let me give this a shot, it seems cool, or tell us about that, and then kind of, what it was like first getting into it.
Well, I picked my department for several reasons, and one of being dogs. At the time, they had 12 dogs at one time, they had 3, they had 9, they had 6, it changed, but they had a bunch of dogs. And I tell people, if you want to get into canine, do not go work for a department that has 0 or 1 dog, or you're not going to get it. The chances are pretty low. So I went in there and with that hopes in mind, SWAT and canine, that's what I wanted. So I was already doing the SWAT thing. Canine, I had tried out from canine before. I passed the tryout, but seniority-wise, I was at the bottom, so I didn't get it. So I got picked for it. And this incident with this first dog shaped my entire being as I am now as a trainer. So they take me and my buddy Chris, we're both brand new. A guy takes us down to Columbus, Ohio to screen dogs. I don't know what the fuck I'm looking for. I don't know. The other guy that was with us was a handler, and they had him go with us. Trainer did not go. So we go down there and we're looking at this lady had. We've been getting dogs from her, and they have this female shepherd. Again, I don't know shit. And they test her, and her hunt drive was really good, as I know it is now. They were throwing stuff and timing it and how long she would look and all that stuff. And she would bite a sleeve. They were on that pretty decent. And then they had another like 10-month-old or 11-month-old for Chris. So we take these 2 dogs. We go back. I start the class. I think I may have even been on leave when all that happened. But anyways, I go back. We start the class. And I worked that dog, her name was Gina, for 3 years on the street, and she never bit a single person, wouldn't bite. The first year on the road, I tased 17 people that she should have bit.
God damn.
And there was probably 4 or 5 or 6 more that got away. She would have been a great IPO dog.
Yeah.
Like, good sleeve dog, great at the field, great pet. I loved her. She lived to be 13 or 14 years old. Actually, the day I moved back from San Diego, working the West Coast Contra, she had a horrible stroke, and I put her down. Like, I get back on a Sunday, I put her down on Tuesday. It was horrible.
One thing for the listeners out there that are not quite savvy on a lot of the dog lingo, IPO is a sport, and one of the things that I think would surprise a lot of people is, and again, why the three of us, are kind of involved into the depths of the industry with which we are is that there is a lot of inconsistencies department to department in terms of the caliber of dogs, if they should be there or not, et cetera. And so, some of this stuff may be a little over people's heads, but realize that there are a lot of elements to police dogs and police canine training, that are far more complicated than just, it's an aggressive dog that goes and bites people and whatever. So keep that kind of in the back of your mind as we talk. So that shaped, and I'm making an assumption here, is that because of the lack of her capability and fundamental capacity with which is required to be able to do police canine work, is that what kind of catapulted you into wanting to get more into the training aspect and selection aspect and do a better job than what she was doing for you? Or?
Yeah, for 3 years I worked. That's very dangerous, And again, I'm a handler. I don't really know. I'm asking for help. I'm not really getting much help. Bite suits weren't a big thing at our place back then. Muzzles weren't a big thing at our place back then. There was some hidden sleeve a little bit. We did a lot of scratch pants and sleeves, and trying to fix things with defense and stuff like that. And what happens is, so our union president becomes union president. He's a canine handler. He's got a great dog. He's got a dog who's been on the street for a couple of years, and he's got a bunch of bites. I'm seeing my guys getting apprehensions and all this other stuff, and they're not having to use tasers and all this other stuff on people.
You're like, wait a minute.
But, yeah, right. Here I am. Now, she was great tracking, real good at dope, would chase a guy, but would not bite him, would run around looking for the equipment and that type of stuff. So the guy becomes union president. He has to leave the unit. And I'm like, I'll take that dog, Willie. I'll take him right now. And they agree. So Gina retires. I get Willie. Shit, man, I get out of class and I get a bite like that first week. And next thing you know, we're rocking and rolling. I worked Willie for a couple years and had, like 75 myself with him.
Bites?
Yeah.
No shit.
And he had like 50 before that.
God damn.
And I was on day shift for a bunch of that. I mean, we had some crazy shit going on. I worked night, all kinds of stuff. It's a busy city. And
you guys did not have a dog on the guy that you were just talking about that was ramming into cars. There wasn't a canine present there, right?
Correct. There was no dog working that night. Yeah. So I knew right then, I was like, man, this is. And what happens is while I'm going through class, my buddy, they had me do a quick little 4-weeker to get familiar with him. Mm-hmm. My buddy Ryan comes in the unit with his first dog, and they have me kind of assistant training with Ryan. The trainer had to do the firearm stuff on Monday, so Monday was me and Ryan. And I'm like, I really don't know all this, but we're going to figure this out. So I taught him building searches and area searches just based on what I know, and figured out some things, was able to help some stuff. And I was like, I'm really interested in this stuff. So I'm working, and then the trainer is going to retire. So they asked who wanted to put in for it, and there was a few of us that put in for it, and I got it. And I had, up to that point, had been going to seminars and taking all the trainers' classes, not so much handlers' classes. And it probably gave me a leg up over some of the others. The other two had been in the unit longer than me, but weren't going anywhere. We're going to no classes at all. Mm-hmm. So I ended up getting it, and that was in end of 2010, and I've been the head trainer there ever since.
Yeah.
The only difference was, at the time when I took over, they made me be a working trainer. So I had to work a dog and train. Yeah. But we trained 25 other agencies. It just didn't work out that way.
Yeah.
So when I left, I left in October of 13 for the SEAL program. When I came back in 14, they put me back in, but it's full-time just training dogs.
Yeah. So the department that you're with and during this time, on average, has about 12 dogs. Is that right?
We're at 7. We've been at 7 for a while.
Okay.
They had 12. They had 9. When I was a handler, we had 9 for a good portion of it.
Yeah.
3 per shift.
And what would you say on average each dog, if you could throw an average, gets in terms of live apprehensions per year?
Per year, 12 to 20
Each dog.
Some are more. There's years we had one dog the year had 40,
Yeah.
and then the next year he had like 10.
Yeah.
It's strange. Midnight shift guys get a lot. We have
One of your dudes had like 9 in 3 days or something.
Yeah, we have
Jesus.
Yeah, they get
Border Patrol shit.
They get a lot of bites on midnight shift, multiple bites on shifts.
Not in bites and fines for all you people freaking out about the Border Patrol comment.
Right. So we're super busy, and then it's real cyclical. It's strange. We'll get.
Do you find that the weather, colder months, less bites, crazier in the summer or anything like that?
Yeah, summer is off the chain. Winter, in the beginning of winter, is slow. I'd say until the thugs get their uniforms out of the attic, the warm clothing, the puffy coats, and all that. Then they start coming out, and then they start doing their dumb shit and robbing people and the crime.
Can you share? I mean, obviously, so being a part of that department, handling a dog with that many bites, and being a trainer, can you throw out a couple of stories that stand above and beyond your standard, dude bails out of a car, he hiding under a deck and bites him or whatever. Like, for again, keeping in mind that the average listener is not in the dog world, and I think one of the things that I love to highlight and would like for you to share and highlight is just some of the amazing shit, both from a courage and bravery standpoint, from a technical capability in terms of tracking in super challenging environments, and then ultimately some acrobatic shit, some just the pieces of the puzzle that all have to be in line with a good heads-up handler that's knowledgeable, that knows how to handle a dog, a phenomenally bred and trained dog, that's been brought up to speed in the manner in which they need to be to execute these types of operations, and then all of the other pieces of the puzzle with cordoned off areas and shit like that. Can you paint that picture for the listener and just a story or two that kind of highlights some of those elements that are all encompassing to cover them?
Sure. I tell you what, we'll focus on for a lot of that on tracking. Tracking is a good example of this. So my guys on the street, I was a terrible tracking handler. I did all the things that as a trainer. Once I became a trainer, I figured out I got much better. But like with Gina, I would, where the fuck are you going? He couldn't have went that way. We got to go over here. And I'm telling you, I blew a bunch of those things.
Yeah, not trusting her.
Right, exactly. And I see it in guys, and I'm pretty good at getting those guys out of that. We don't train, we track all the time. Now we're in an urban city, so we have tons of concrete and we have green spaces, grass and everything, a lot of blacktop, a lot of concrete. What people would be surprised to learn is how many tracks we have with fines where we find and bite the guy or a fine he gives up. And they're all hard surface, and I really don't do a ton of hard surface at training. And the other big thing I don't do, and we've talked about this, is different from me and you, is I don't do a ton of bites on training tracks. I end my tracks usually with a toy, just to work on keeping their nose down, mainly because our guys get so many tracks with bites on the end of them. I teach, as far as hard surface goes, I teach more odor pooling. So for the audience, like I teach the guys where the wind is pushing the odor. So if the guy does a robbery of a pizza joint, runs down the sidewalk, and say they watch him run 4 blocks down the sidewalk, your dog is probably not going to put his nose on the sidewalk and track 4 blocks onto the sidewalk. If the wind is blowing, he's going to collect on the grass, it's going to collect on the fence line. So even with all that, we have a ton of success on tracking. And essentially, the theory is the guy pretty much has to close his eyes and just go where he goes, because we have, I call them zombies. We have just people wandering all the fuck over the place all the time in that town, man, just walking around. So you're tracking, and your dog may air scent somebody else. There's backup officers. We have a decent amount of guys on the shift, but we don't have air assets or anything like that. I know a lot of departments out west don't even track. They just do area searches with air assets and cordon off areas. But tracking to me is, I love training it. I love watching them do it because it is a natural thing in the dog to put his nose down if it's in their genes to track. But mostly animals and things like, we have to teach them to track the human animal.
And discriminate.
And discriminate, right. And stay on the track because one of the areas I like to do tracking in has a ton of coyotes and deer and a lot of animal odors, piss, from other things. You got to stay on this. You don't get to, now a lot of times we have to correct them off of that, but they start to learn that. And once it really gets going, if you have a good man tracking dog, I don't know that there's anything in this business more satisfying than tracking down the guy who just pistol whipped some pizza delivery dude, and we caught him and tracked to his front door and caught him in his house, hiding in his bedroom. And when you get to do that and then transition maybe to an area search or something, or a building search, and get that bite. Acrobatically, what we were talking about. So my guys in my department, our class is like 14 weeks. It's longer because our policing is different than some of the smaller units. They come out. There's a good chance the first week, they're going to have a chance to bite somebody. So we have to make sure that it's not as much OJT as some of the smaller places that went to 5 and 6 week classes. Yeah. So we have a dog in our unit that's just an amazing dog. His first week out or second week out on the road, heroin's a big thing in Ohio. Heroin's real bad. One of the weirdest things that guys do is shoot heroin when they're fucking driving cars. I don't get it. And then they pass out, they crash, or they run from the police until they pass out. Yeah. So they get into a pursuit with the guy, and they stop. They get him. They end up putting the dog through the open passenger side door and get a bite. Right? Nothing too amazing, but we train that. If you didn't train it, it might not work. Right? So you change it. The very next day, they get into a slow speed pursuit with a dude, and they box him in, and the dog comes and jumps on top of the cruiser, jumps on his own, jumps on top of the cruiser, runs down, jumps on the hood of the car, and dives through the window. I never did. Listen, I did a lot of fucking shit, but we never had him do that
fucking
stuff.
Michael Knight over here.
Right. And when you see these dogs that can do that tier 1 athlete type stuff, like professional athletes, the stuff they can do, it's amazing. We had a dog fall 2 stories from a tower, the harness broke, fall straight down onto his chest. Boom, get up and go do the bite, not get injured. Yeah. Some of those are
don't try that. Though.
No, leave that out of your repertoire. But we're super busy. One of my guys working midnight shift, they get guys, I forget what the crime they were doing, but there's 3 of them. He tracks a guy, bites him. And now at this point, he's out kind of by himself. He handcuffs the dude to a fence. Where's your buddy? He went that way. Track him, bite the second dude, cuff him to the fence. Track the third dude and bite that guy.
Oh, shit.
That handler and that dog just passed away last year. They probably had 5 of those on their career.
Like multiple bites?
Multiple bite track nights.
Oh, shit.
We get a lot of crap. Not a lot, but we get crap. We do a lot of water training. Mm-hmm. And it's fun. It's at the lake I live in, and we have them dive off the docks, and it's definitely over their head and things like that. And we don't... we're not sending our dogs, and I really like those who would see those videos I would never send my dog, they'll drown him. Look, shithead, we aren't doing that either. That is not the point of the training. The point of the training is get him to do it when he's uncomfortable, because what we do get is a ton of bites in water, through creeks, in creeks, ponds, because we help other agencies. They may have lakes and ponds and things like that. So some of that stuff, the stuff that we can get dogs to do, I love it. And I keep pushing them. Yeah. We have a dog on Midnights that gets a lot of bites. He'll fight King Kong in the dark, in the pitch black. But if you get him up off his feet, he'll get a little wonky on you. Yeah. So there's just things like that. It's never ending. Yeah.
I'm just going to ask a couple more questions before we get too much more into the canine stuff. Then I want to loop Ted in here. But can you tell me, are there 1 or 2 bites that stick out as being just god awful nasty in terms of the amount of damage done? I mean, that's always
Yeah. So one of my bites, I actually have a video of it that when I retire will be posted online, but not now. We had these guys break into a house, and we go in the house. We catch a couple of them. One runs off, And I go hunting for the dude, me and my dog Willie. We go hunting for him, and they point out, see, this is in the hood too, and these guys are working on a car, and they're like, yeah, dude ran back here behind his house, has not come out. So I park on the street, I'm parked behind a car, and that's right where my video camera is. I find the guy, it takes me like 5 seconds to find him, hiding behind the house. He takes off running, I drop the leash, or I unhook the dog, send him. He runs out, and this is for you YouTubers, he runs out and jumps on the roof of the car. The dog, who's a big-ass German Shepherd, gets down about where the sidewalk is and jumps on the car with him over the top, bites him, flips him off the other side of the car. So I go, I'm so geeked out, man. I'm like, I can't believe what I just saw. So I go running over there, and the guy's screaming. The dog's got him in the arm, and I'm telling him to get his hands behind his back. I'm trying to cuff him, and the guy brings his arm up right by his face, and I'm like, I'll grab the dog, and he brings his arm up, and as soon as he does, the dog lets go and bites him in the neck.
God damn.
And you hear me in the video go, no, 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 no. And as soon as I do that, he lets go and bites the kid right through his eye.
Fuck.
2 through his eye socket, and the other one up in his scalp, and holds him like this. So, fuck, man. I get a hold of him, and I'm excited. So I'm, pulling on the collar, and for those of you who don't know, when you lift up, a lot of the times the dogs will counter against that and hold on. But I held him up, and you can see in the video his skin from his scalp stretch and then snap back on his head when he lets go. We got lucky there. The eyeball's pretty fluid in there, but he had his hole all the way back in through his skull from that one.
Yeah,
17 years old, as it turns out.
God damn.
But we just bit a guy, a crazy dude, not too long ago. Went to a coffee shop and started attacking people, and he got bit in the leg, and they thought he didn't make a sound. He's like, "Can you get your dog?" Yeah. They thought they were going to have to amputate.
No shit.
He got found not guilty by reason of insanity. He did 3 months in the rehab facility for that bite. 3 months.
Fucking Christ.
We get the ones, we teach that inside bite. We get biceps separated, and we had a dog pull a bicep muscle out through a hole in the guy's arm.
How routine or regular with occurrence do you see bones being broken in conjunction with tissue damage?
Not a ton. We don't have a ton. There's one dog we have that you can feel it. Like, man, when he just starts grinding his gears, man, and turning his head, and you're like, my arm's gonna snap here in a minute.
Yeah.
We don't get it too much. I had my dog Willie chased the guy down and hit the guy in the leg running down the sidewalk and snapped the leg bone.
Yeah.
And then let go and bit him in the arm and severed everything in his arm.
Yeah.
And started gushing blood. I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
So backup arrives, I run, put the dog up. I get the dog's first aid kit, wrap him up, and the ambulance gets there and they're like, they didn't tell us you shot him. I'm like, I didn't shoot him. But that dude was in the hospital for like 15 days. He had like $500,000 worth of surgeries.
Jesus Christ.
In that.
Well, before we go too far down that rabbit hole, 2 things I want to bring up. One, we will circle back to the outing philosophy on the different elements of that. And for those of you listening, it's in conjunction with or to further dive into damage being done when you're trying to get the dog to let go and some of the legalities with that. We'll talk about that, all 3 of us here in a little bit. But one thing that I do find important to communicate to listeners who have very little exposure or experience in hearing stories like that, and a lot of times find that it's gruesome or it's way over the top, or they take the kind of almost a victim stance or mentality in terms of showing empathy or sympathy for people in situations like that. And the one thing that I generally like to start that conversation out with is that while it's very primal in nature and it is pretty significant in terms of the damage that these dogs do in most cases, here's the reality though is that it's far better than being fucking shot. It's still a non-lethal means in terms of neutralizing threats, apprehending suspects, catching people, and ultimately keeping officers safe. Are there nuances that could be handled better, or And again, we'll talk about some of the outing protocols that that everybody has their own fucking opinion on. But that's the one point that I want to drive home is that a lot of people hear that and they're like, Jesus Christ, that's fucking brutal. It's terrible, whatever. It's still better than being, even the taser fucking kills more people, tenfold than dogs do. Where they're running and they get tased and they fucking lock up and get concussed or hit a curb and it fucking puts them in a coma or whatever. And a lot of people get fucking shot. So, consider it the lesser of two evils. I'll get off my soapbox. It's just for me as an industry professional, and I'll use professional loosely, is that I get tired of hearing that of people, essentially fucking whining about, dogs doing brutal damage and things of that nature. I still like to hear about it. I don't think it's sick or twisted. It's no different than, football players wanting to get put in the game. You want to see, your dog do what he was fucking bred and raised and trained to do. So I'll leave it at that. I just want to ask two general cop questions because I love asking cops in this forum certain things that are a little more broad spectrum, and then we're going to get Ted in here and start talking some heavier canine stuff. But one thing is, I guess it's kind of a three-part thing. The first one is, what is something that you wish your general public knew about cops that they don't?
We don't have quotas.
Yeah.
I don't know. Highway patrolmen supposedly do, and I think it's an unwritten rule for them. We don't have quotas. When we also are human beings, and we do eat dinner and eat lunch, and don't mind. I don't mind talking to kids, and I don't mind whatever. But it's funny. We get people that will complain because our car's running, or that we stop to have lunch. We're all just, it is a profession. We're not robots. We're married with kids and have grandkids and stuff like that, and we do the job. And I work in a pretty diverse community with a lot of races. I have never, not one time in my 23rd year, heard a cop when we're working say, let's get this guy because he's black, or let's get this guy because he's Latino. I've never once heard any of that stuff where that affected people. Yeah. We're going after folks that are preying on the society. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't people like that, but out of a 180-man department, and that's changed over the years. We've had a lot of people come and go on. In 23 years, working with a lot of guys, and just me and the dude in the cruiser, never heard that. Never once did I hear that. And so that there's, amongst some folks, there is a perception that we do all think that way. Yeah. And I'm telling you, we don't.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I'm curious, one of the other things I've written down here is in terms of the Black Lives Matter, whatever you want to call it, campaign, movement, etc. What is the pulse like as it relates to that in your neck of the woods? Has that had a dramatic impact on your department, how you guys operate, things of that nature?
I don't think so. Of course, everybody saw it. There's some folks in town that try to preach that, but it's not. Our relationship with the community is pretty good. Mm-hmm. We're arresting black guys, white guys, everybody. Whoever is doing the crime, that's what we got, because we have a pretty equal opportunity crime problem in our town. Yeah. We don't really have that much of an issue. Yeah. I do see one thing that it's shameful is the treatment of black officers by the black community. I've seen a lot of that. Those guys are good dudes, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? They're not selling out. They're guys that grew up either in that community or another community that just want to help and want to do the right thing. And that's not wrong. Yeah. Even if you're an activist who doesn't believe in law enforcement and things like that. That's the thing with Black Lives Matter. They don't believe in law enforcement at all. And
you see a lot of friction from black officers or them getting a lot of hate and friction and shit from the black communities. Yeah,
they have. I've talked to black officers in the past. They've their situation is a lot different. They're looked at. They're not liked because they're cops, and then they're not liked by some folks, not everybody, but a few folks in the black community because they're black cops. Yeah. Especially if they grew up there. They grew up in that town. Oh my gosh,
That's a shitty fucking spot to be in.
Right, and we have some guys, man. We have some black officers on our department that are just amazing. Just all they want to do is help. Man.
Yeah.
We have guys on there that they're running and gunning like everybody else, and then but we don't. Nobody's out there doing that shit, man.
Yeah.
I think, the guy right after the Dallas thing happened, the chief of Dallas, I mean, he came out there after the whole Black Lives Matter, like after the shooting happened, and he said, we're always hiring.
Yeah.
If you really want to make a difference in your community, we're always hiring.
Yeah.
All day.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's a brilliant response to that. Like, fucking come help out. And I mean, that's true in any industry. It's like you can run your mouth or you can help fix the fucking problem, and it's fucking perfect.
And I can tell you this, and this isn't just our department. Nobody wants to do this job anymore. Nobody coming into it wants to be a cop anymore.
I know it. I mean, I remember growing up, like the paradigm shift, our societal paradigm shift from the perception of law enforcement, back when I was growing up to where it is now is 180 out. And I honestly, like, I do not envy your guys' fucking position, and I sure as fuck wouldn't want to do it. Like, I mean, for what the pay scale is and what you guys fucking deal with, I mean, number one, most people fucking hate you. Number two is that's perpetuated by a lot of different leaders in the last decade. In a lot of different capacities. But the other side of that is that you're only dealing with people that are having the worst day of their life. Or being caught doing something that they're not supposed to be. Like, you're rarely in a situation where, like, the person's happy to see you. Like, for sure, there's occasions where you're bailing somebody out, but most of the time you're ruining somebody's fucking day or even their life. Just because you're there, and they, I think by default, are going to naturally contextually associate you with it's your fucking fault that that I'm doing this wrong and I'm being caught or whatever. But we'll get more into that here as we bring Ted in on some of the training stuff. Last question. Just because I find it fucking hilarious, is what is the funniest thing anybody's ever lied to you about when you're arresting them? Like, these ain't my pants, like with heroin in them. Or
That's exactly it. There's several street gangs in our city, and I always loved working in the high crime neighborhoods. Right, that was always my thing, and I would bid those zones and work them all the time, and then arrest a lot of people, and then keep on top of these gangbangers and stuff. And we had this one house where these gangbangers were pretty much pushing their way in and out of her house and using it. And I got her to tell me that anyone on my porch is not welcome here. Anybody around here, I am not asking them to be there. So one night we're driving and I see a guy passed out on her front porch. And I recognize him because he's like one of the leaders of the local gang, one of the main muscle guys. And we go and wake him up. He's all fucked up. Get him up. He's trespassing, right? So we get him up and I arrest him. I start, as soon as you touch him, these aren't my pants. I found these down the street and put them on.
Yeah. Before you even looked at him.
Before you even looked at him. He had like 13 grams of crack or something in his pocket. Not his, and I'm like, his name is Sam. I'm like, Sam, is that really going to be your defense? I found these pants that fit me perfectly.
Yeah, because you weren't wearing any?
Right on the street. Yeah.
So you were naked.
Right. It's like November, and you're going to wear it. And the funny thing is about him is, so he goes to prison for that, and he comes out and gets caught in Utah with like 30 kilos of cocaine, driving it back.
When it wasn't his car, right?
No, right. They had just, it must have been in there from when they bought it from the dealer, because the dealer was a shady dude. Bought the car dealer. So.
Fucking priceless.
A lot of those aren't my pants.
Yeah.
My name is John Smith. When their ID is in their pocket, saying what their name actually is. A lot of, I forgot. Damn it.
Fuck. Oh, I love hearing that shit. All right, so we're going to segue into the other portion of the interview. And so where this kind of integrates into what we've already been talking about is on the training component, and very similarly to what I have done in the past, and in some capacity still continue to do. But the next guest is the co-host with Eric with the podcast Working Dog Radio. I encourage you to check it out. He's been working dogs for over 15 years. He is the co-owner of Working Dog Dry Goods, the co-founder of Torchlight Canine, which is located in Oklahoma, and of which is the only company that's accredited from a civilian standpoint with CLEAT, which is an organization, a law enforcement organization in the state of Oklahoma. So Torchlight Canine is the only company in Oklahoma that's certified to do that, that's run by civilians. He is a certified PSA trial decoy. What that means is Protection Sports of America. He's the guy in the suit and is certified to be one of their decoys or helpers with that type of work. And last but certainly not least, his fucking beard gives ZZ Top roadies nightmares. Please welcome Ted Summers.
What's going on?
I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah.
I appreciate both you guys coming. In terms of the podcast, I've been on theirs a couple times. It's awesome having them come be on mine. Theirs is certainly more dog specific, but they have a lot of good guests on there that are intriguing if you want to delve further into the elements of working dog industry. But what I find neat about this industry in most respects is kind of the level of mutual respect and brotherhood that we all as trainers have with each other. In most cases, there's certainly elements of the industry that are catty and gossipy and fuck that guy, as we were talking earlier, right? But by and large, to me, it's nice to have you guys down here and be able to talk about your experiences and round out some of the perspective that I have. But were you want to say something? No. Just grabbing the mic just like you thought you were back at your Vice days.
Right. Yeah,
the way you're grabbing that mic.
You're looking for a hole in the wall.
Is it moving the mic to the mouth or the mouth to the mic? I can't remember.
Welcome to Glory Hole Radio. All right, so Ted, I'm going to run you through some of the lightning round stuff. Obviously, you've got a little bit of a jump on Eric, but what does your morning routine look like?
I usually get up about 5 o'clock or so. My business partner and my better half, Alicia, is one of those annoyingly active morning people.
Yeah.
And she's up fucking answering emails and watching cat videos on YouTube at 4 a.m. And it is super, super annoying. She's talking to the dogs and she's fucking around on her phone. And if she's asleep, like I tiptoe. Like, hell have no fury, like waking up your wife or your girlfriend if she's asleep. Holy shit, bad idea. So I'm usually up at 4 or 5-ish, somewhere in there, depending on what we got going on for the day. Get up. My personal dogs are at the house. Work them in the morning for a little bit, just like OB and stuff. Nothing like outstanding. We go to the gym every day. Weekends are usually a little off, but pretty much every day. And I do it now, mainly to keep from getting injured, to stop from accumulating injury. So I don't really have anything specific that I do. I don't do CrossFit. I don't do anything like that. We have a personal trainer, and I'm just literally doing...
So both of you assholes have personal trainers.
That's correct.
I mean, what the fuck? What am I doing wrong here?
I can't
train
think
myself.
for myself.
Yeah.
I just show up and do what the fuck he tells me to do,
Right.
and he's like, yeah, here you go.
I like telling myself what to do. That's how fucking big of an asshole I am.
And then I'm usually at the kennel by about 8:30-ish in the summertime to try and get some of the stuff done before it gets stupid hot outside. In the wintertime, I'll move it around and show up when it gets warmer. We usually work till about 12 or noon. I come home. And then work on Working Dog Radio and Working Dog Drag It stuff until it's time to either cook dinner or eat dinner. And then I'm still planning stuff for the next day. I'm still answering emails, fucking emails, I swear to God. Emails and text messages and, from officers, from prospective buyers, from whoever. And then, by the time that we finally wind down, it's 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And allegedly, we try and watch TV. But I must be the only asshole on the planet that has never seen an episode of Game of Thrones, and I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything.
Well, I don't watch it. I mean, I've seen parts of episodes from other people watching it, but I mean,
and Eric was saying, like, he used to watch a lot of TV, and I don't have cable, and we have, like, a Fire Stick, too. But it's like, I don't have time to watch TV.
You do know there's full frontal nudity in Game of Thrones.
So is porn.
Yeah, I was going to say, that that is part of the morning routine, too. I forgot about that.
Porn?
Well, yeah, porn and reading. Yeah. So, I read in the morning.
Time.
So I try and read in the morning, just something, and it's been something I've always done, just kind of like quiet time for like 20 or 30 minutes, just to kind of set myself up for the rest of the day. But, it's basically just worky, all day long.
Yeah.
And
In terms of when you first get up before you work out, same question, like anything that you eat or drink, or do you skip breakfast? Or
Dude, I'm like a snake. I eat once a day and then lay on a hot rock, and it's usually tacos and beer, and energy drinks, which, I figure if I'm going to die from something is that, because I've never smoked, I've never used drugs. I'm not going to start. Yeah, I'm not going to start now. So I usually work all the way through lunch, and then I'll come home and eat a lot. Yeah. And some of that's from some of my background in endurance sports, which we can talk about. But I know it's not necessarily a healthy habit. I do eat healthy. It's not like I'm eating, well, despite what Alicia will tell you, I'm not eating like fucking French fries and Doritos and, drinking soda and whatever else. But I usually drink water and beer, and that's about it.
Yeah. Amen. Do you have a favorite pastime activity?
I say, and it sounds so cliche, I enjoy what I do. I mean, I enjoy running Torchlight. I enjoy running Working Dog Dry Goods. I enjoy, I have a group of friends at home that are not related to canine, not related to law enforcement at all, that are great friends of mine. And, we go shooting, and I usually use it as a time to do a lot of gunfire desensitization with dogs. So I'm usually turning it into something related to what I've got going on at the kennel at that time. So, but yeah.
Amen. Favorite 80s sitcom?
Man, I wasn't around I was around, but
Stop.
I didn't. What do you mean stop? So
favorite 90s sitcom?
I would say the one with Fred Savage in it.
Wonder Years.
Yeah, I like that one.
Winnie was hot.
Yeah, that was the why.
Every dude I know
everybody likes Winnie.
Everybody who doesn't love Winnie? There should be a spinoff. Everybody loves Winnie. Fuck Raymond. Yeah. Everybody loves Winnie. Most practical, in terms of shooting, for you, a carry, gun, and or round.
So I'm not like a gun guy. I mean, I am. Like, we own firearms, and I'm proficient with them. I'm proficient with the ones that I own. We own Glocks and we own ARs, and and Alicia just got a fucking Desert Tactical SRS A1 covert. And I'm like, what the fuck are we going to do with this thing? And I guess we're going to go shoot groundhogs and pigs. So, and she wants to learn long range shooting. And so I was like, well, if you're going to get one, that's a good one. But, just as crazy as it sounds, I prefer 9mm because it's cheap. You can shoot a shitload of it. And my kind of thing, especially coming from the other background that I came from, is that, I see a lot of guys jibber jabber and this, that, and the other, and I'm like, y'all motherfuckers still can't hit the broadside of a barn with fucking directions, even no matter what kind of gun you have. And one of the guys that's teaching Alicia how to shoot is kind of one of those guys. He's not old, he's my age, but he's a MARSOC guy and did some other stuff for the State Department. But his big deal with her, because I refuse to teach her how to shoot, is all about shot placement. And that's his thing. He's like, you can kill people with a 22. It doesn't matter. He was like, but if you can't hit them, and then some people are like, oh, accuracy to volume, just fucking fire. So I prefer 9mm.
Yeah. No, I'm in the same boat. I think, really, I'm 100% in the same boat as the guy you just mentioned, is whether you're shooting a 22 or a 454. Like, if you're hitting where it needs to go, it's going to work. Right. If you're not, it doesn't matter what the fuck you're shooting. Favorite cereal?
Only the marshmallows out of Lucky Charms.
Is that right?
Just the marshmallows.
Just the marshmallows. I'll pick those.
Is that really cereal, or is that just a bowl of fucking marshmallows?
Either way, they're crunchy, sort of. And then you
came out of a box. All right.
Came out of a box. You put milk on it. It works.
Lucky Charms marshmallows. All right. Most embarrassing moment.
I'm kind of like Eric. I don't have any shame. Even when I was in college, I was the guy that everybody, they were like, go get him, he'll do it. And they would be like, you want to come? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Whatever. What are we doing? And zero shame. I was the guy that would always, when sororities would have pictures, they would have my nuts hang out of my zipper to fuck their pictures up. And, they get it developed because they didn't have digital cameras back then. Like, I'm not that young. But, people would be pissed off because I'd cat brain them. And so, it was. And then I would accuse them of being a meat gazer. I'm like, well, then throw the picture away, or that, or you're going to have to look at it.
You're the one looking at it.
Yeah. I'm like, so,
asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's fucking great. So do you have a biggest oh shit moment then? Not necessarily from an embarrassment standpoint, but like whether it's danger or...
When I lived in Colorado, I worked for a very prominent backcountry ski store, and I also worked for a sheriff's office, and we were doing avalanche control, and it's a very sobering, because I've been through earthquakes and all that kind of shit, but it's a very sobering experience being on something that's that big that moves that you absolutely know will fucking kill you.
Well, I get that a lot, I'll tell you what.
That's what she said.
It's just walking around. It's fucking Texas. It's almost like Australia down here. All the wildlife will fucking kill you. So
that's not what I'm talking about.
So we, and I mean, I've been in some where, you know, you'll have an entire slab shift and it's fucking scary while you're digging a pit or whatever to do some evaluation of depth ore and some snow layers, and it's creepy. And recently I've had one with a dog that came from the sheriff's department that is just a prick. He's just a dick. He likes to bite people, and it is what it is. And he was here for a while, or he was with us, or he's still with us. And I went to feed him, and the door got stuck open, and he kind of stood there and looked at me. I was like, well, shit, this is it. This is how I'm going to die. This motherfucker's going to kill me. And he kind of looked at me, and he'd been with me for about 3 weeks at the time, and he just kind of looked up and grumbled, and then went to eating, and I kind of I kind of tapped the food and moved it out of the way and slammed the door real quick. I was like, I got to go change my underwear. And I told my kennel tech, I was like, you can take care of the rest of them. I'm going to go sit down in the office real quick because I just about fucking died. So, but yeah, the avalanche stuff was creepy.
Did you do any avalanche canine training while you were there?
With the picking, we're not going to put that in there, but with the sheriff's office I was at, we did do some of that with some labs, and mainly it was labs. It was a couple of labs, and what was that other dog? He was a
Saint Bernard with a wooden keg around his neck.
Exactly. He fucking make a martini just like the cartoons.
He could talk.
It was one of the little like blue heeler looking things. It was like a blue heeler collie looking mix, and fantastic avalanche dogs.
Yeah.
And you know that process. In fact, we just did the interview with the guys from the place in Oklahoma City, Daryl Wilkerson and those guys, and talking about their certification process for FEMA and what those dogs are, which is kind of similar for the avalanche dogs, but watching those dogs work is amazing.
Yeah, I just have really one experience being around them while they were working. It was at Mammoth Mountain back when I was on the West Coast. We did a training trip up there and coordinated with some of their avalanche rescue guys, and there was a handful of dogs, and it was pretty fascinating because there's such a disparity between normal police work and even regular search and rescue work, and that it's such a specialized skill set with the to me what I found fascinating was obviously the capability of the dogs, but the system that they use to kind of map out the avalanche with driving the fucking rods down and quartering off things and almost like grid coordinates. And to me, it's pretty neat, doing that or seeing that taking place with dogs and humans, kind of fucking doing it together. It's pretty neat shit. But anyway, in terms of your childhood, where you grew up, same thing, kind of family dynamic, siblings, growing up with dogs. Like what kind of shaped you into getting into this?
I always tell people I had a horribly normal childhood. My parents are still married. I'm
like Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah, well, not quite like that, but I grew up in Oklahoma and was born there, raised there. Went to high school and college there. My dad traveled a lot as a kid. My mom is one of those people that's like way overeducated. She was an RN forever. She kind of, at the time, her and my grandfather kind of shaped how I ended up where I'm at right now. But I have one sister who's 5 years younger than me, still lives in we still live in proximity. And parents are still married. Dad's still an asshole. So, I mean, he's...
Shout out to Dad.
Yeah, he'll probably hear this and be like, yeah. So,
fuck you, Ted.
I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, which also kind of shaped a lot of the way after I got out of college, the direction I took and the skills that I learned as a kid, because my grandfather was in the oil industry. In fact, my great-grandfather, who Alicia's stupid dog is named after, his name is Static. My great-grandfather's nickname was Static because he would just cause all kinds of fucking problems. And before Oklahoma was a state, they moved from West Virginia, and he was drilling illegal wells. Yeah. So my entire family was in the oil industry, which is how we ended up in Oklahoma. So because we didn't have meth then yet, so that was the biggest export. Right. So my grandfather and my uncle and my dad, that side of my family lived all over the world. They moved out of the United States when my dad was, I don't know, like 6. Lived in South America, Indonesia. My dad went to high school in Beirut.
No shit.
Yeah, he was there during the time when Gaddafi took over, which was a shit show. So, you know, when my grandfather came back to the United States, I spent a lot of time with him, and he's a car guy, he's a gun guy, outdoors. So he taught me all these skills that I didn't realize. So I was just out playing, you know, I was a kid. Anytime I was, you know, doing shit from when I was 7 to, you know, 16 years old, stuff now that with the ATF would show up, I'm sure, or the FBI. And, you know, I bought my first car with him when I was 14. It was a 67 Mustang with a 427 in it, which does not, shit, I'm a 38-year-old man and I still don't need that car. And at 16 years old.
It's not about need.
No. At 16 years old, you definitely do not need a car like that. I got into a lot of trouble with that car.
Yeah.
And so, you know, but now at this age, there's a lot of guys that are my age, and especially younger, that can't change a fucking tire, that don't know which direction north is, can't read a fucking map, can't tie their shoes because they don't wear shoes with fucking laces anymore.
I love Velcro, by the way.
So I learned all this stuff as a kid, and and then I spent a lot of times out in the woods, you know, goofing off and rock climbing and backcountry skiing and everything else, and it kind of turned into something else down the road. But I'm grateful for that, and at the time I didn't really think anything of it. I was just out goofing off and being a kid, blowing shit up, shooting stuff, going too fast in cars, messing with chicks, and, you know, generally making poor decisions, and has kind of helped. Yeah, youth is absolutely wasted on the young. Yeah. I will say that.
That's a no-shitter. And unfortunately, you don't realize it until it's way too fucking late.
Exactly.
Did you have dogs growing up?
I did. I had a chocolate lab that, her name was Claire, and she came from hunting lines, so she was a neurotic shithead. And I was like 10 years old, and we would take her to obedience classes. And at the time, it was all fucking yank and crank. And so, you know, I taught her to do tricks, and she was a cool dog. And I went off to college, and she stayed at my parents' house and eventually passed away. But yeah, I mean, she was cool. I didn't get another dog until I moved to Colorado, and I got a working Jack Russell Terrier, which was
a whole experience.
Holy cow. Yeah. People are always like, oh, Malinois are crazy. I'm like, fuck that. If you want a crazy dog, go get a working JRT or a JDAG or a Patterdale Terrier. Those things are terrifying.
Yeah. I had a couple of Patterdales when I lived in California on active duty, of all fucking things. But that's a whole episode in and of itself. So from the time you graduated high school until you kind of got heavy into dogs, what was it about that time period, or what transpired then that shaped and channeled and directed you into getting into dogs?
So in high school and in college, I was active in endurance sports, cycling, cross-country skiing, and orienteering, doing backcountry ski racing, that kind of stuff that revolved around stuff I did as a child or as a kid, which also kept me out of trouble. And so I spent some time in Europe racing, and while I was there. These big ass Belgian dudes, for people that have never been to Belgium, everyone there is like the size of a door in the United States. They're just huge people. And, I came back to the United States, or while I was there, we had these dudes come by and they're like, hey, do you want to catch dogs? I'm like, what, on my bike?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, ha, ha, ha. I'm like, no, seriously, like, what's the deal? They're like, no, just come with us. So at the time, I was terrified.
Sounds great.
Come with us. Right. I'm like, yeah, this is how bad movies start. They're filming an episode of Hostel. So we show up, and they stick us in these NVBK suits, which NVBK is another dog sport that's in Belgium. And I was there with a vendor, with a cycling vendor that was based in France. And they just let this dude, and so this dude comes up to me, and he speaks no English, and my Flemish is non-existent. So he's like, he holds my hand like this, and I'm like, no. And he's like, no. And he holds it again. I'm like, all right, fine. So they bring out, at the time I thought it was a big dog, but it probably wasn't that big, but this huge Malinois, and I'm sitting in a chair, and this dog just shit piles me into the ground. And I thought I was going to die. I was like, this is it. I'm going to die again, which is kind of ironic that I just said that about the one from this county we just had. So full circle. So we do this for a while, and I come back to the United States, and I'm like, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I had no idea that I was even any good at it. And at the time, I didn't realize that I was learning how to properly do things and not develop bad habits as a decoy. Moving forward, I guess I should tell everybody, like, my heart and soul in terms of canine is the apprehension side and the decoying. And it's something that is like my thing. And this is where it came from. So I had some friends that dads were canine handlers in a large city near us. And he told his friends, hey, my buddy's been doing this. And they're like, what? So I would catch these dogs and they're like, where did you learn how to do that? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, just kind of did it, I guess. And I had no idea. It was always something I kind of dabbled in. And then I kind of fell into it about 8 to 10 years ago with my current partner now. And it's been nothing but full gas since then. So like I tell people I never intended to be sitting here. I'm kind of a non-traditional person in this industry. I don't have a military background. I don't have a law enforcement background. And, I ended up in a position where I'm training those people to do their jobs.
Yeah.
And it's been an interesting ride. It still is, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I think, it's one element or aspect of the industry that is odd. I've seen, some of the best canine, and by canine, I don't just mean dog. I mean, the working canine aspect of it. Some of the best trainers I've seen are same thing. Have no police or military background. And to me, that's one of the neat things about dogs is that, yes, there is an element of that experience that plays an enormous role, as it relates to your interpretation of, what the guys go through, what they need to be able to do, what's realistic or not, things of that nature. But to me, the biggest component about dog training is the level of competency with which you can get a dog to do X. And that's the most important thing. If somebody is very good at getting a dog to do whatever the fuck it is, then they're valuable. That's only half of it. Obviously, the decoy thing is a whole nother animal. But it is I at least off the top of my head, I can't think of another industry where that's really the case. Where you've got people that have really no background that are teaching people that are subject matter experts in that element of their field that where that's taken place. That's an interesting thing for sure. So from as you got into it, is there, and this is where we can kind of all three of us get in on it, is that talk to me about some of your experiences with working with these professionals, working with Eric, and if you can kind of shed some light on some of the things that you've seen over the years that stand out as being things that would be relevant for people to know and understand about working dogs.
One of the things you kind of hit on it a minute ago when you asked Eric about what is something you want people to know about cops, and that they are real people. And one of the things that I'm always, because I spend so much time with my handlers, and like you said, people hate. I mean, I catch shit because I'm not even a damn cop, and because I train police dogs, people are like, "Well, you're part of the problem," and I'm like, you know what? I'm not, these guys are doing their jobs. Like Eric's like, they do their job, they go home, they have families, they have hobbies, they eat lunch, they're normal fucking people. And law enforcement I believe is a calling because they're typically undervalued, they're definitely undercompensated, and you have to want to be there. And canine is especially no different. And, I'm the one that's always kind of like, if you're pissed off about the marijuana laws, then talk to the people that you elect. Don't get fucking pissed at these guys because they're doing their job. Yeah. And those are the ones you need to be mad at. Mm-hmm. And you should take it out on them. But instead, these guys, police officers, get thrown under the bus because of something that the people that they're bitching about, or the people that are bitching, are the ones that elected the people to put them in that position. Yeah. And it's frustrating. So,
but yeah, I mean, to me, on the kind of the broader spectrum of that, you've got, and to me, like, I can't think of a better way to, help drive the decision, just like any policy that on a federal level is like, well, what does the Constitution say? But, to me, any law that's being considered for, being passed, I think, one really simple but incredibly effective litmus test for it is it worth killing somebody over? And to me, the answer needs to be fucking yes, because here's the reality is that you as a cop, if, okay, now this is illegal, and you commit or you observe somebody doing it and you confront them and they say, you know what, fucking no, I'm not going to stop it. and then you have to, enforce the law, and you go to enforce the law, and now they fight you on it. They don't think it should be illegal. They put your life in danger. So, I mean, ultimately, something as simple as, one of the, biggest heartburns I had in watching it was the case of there was a black guy in New York selling, they call them Lucy's or singles or whatever, single cigarettes that they end up fucking choking him and he dies from it and whatever, and everybody's pissed at the cops. And it's like, but to me, that's a prime example of, if you want to be pissed at the people that said that that's fucking illegal, to the point where they've got to confront somebody on it. Like, it's either illegal or it's not. But, to me, like, you can't have that gray area of, well, yeah, it's illegal, but it's not worth killing somebody. Like, there's no there's no good solution to that. If you're confronting somebody that's breaking the fucking law, and you try to grab them to apprehend them, and they grab your fucking pistol or start punching you in the face or choking you or whatever, it's like, what do you expect these fucking guys to do? I'm curious to get your take on the legislative position on that.
Yeah, and like that case in New York, I guarantee you those guys were told, hey, we got a guy over here selling these singles. You need to go do something about it.
Yeah.
And they're like, Jesus Christ. And New York has shown that when they, like under Giuliani, when they cracked down on the small things, it did have an effect, because not that the people were going to stop doing the small things. They were getting bigger criminals doing small. Criminals do all levels of crime, all levels of crime. But, maybe, I don't know how many more things they can make fucking illegal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why that they're decriminalizing a lot of things, or making them less illegal, from arrestable offenses to more ticket offenses and things like that. I don't know. I'm like everybody. I like to be left alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like to be left alone. I don't want the police coming around me. Not that I'm doing anything. I don't want, people prying into my stuff like that. But again, not one single policeman makes those laws. Not a single one of them. We used to have a lot of discretion. I mean, listen, everybody back from the policemen in the 90s can tell you, we would take your joint, your weed, and dump it in the sewer drain. Throw it out, for the most part, unless you were just a complete fucking jerk.
Yeah.
We would toss that out because whatever. It was weed. There's no discretion anymore.
Yeah.
There's none of that. People got to keep that in mind. Don't you have better things to do? Actually, I do. But I'm told I must come deal with you.
How big of a role do body cams play in that for you? Do you guys have them, and are they like, what's your take on them?
Yeah, we have them now. Some agencies still don't. We do. I'm not. I mean, I don't know. I see good and bad. They definitely have helped save some folks as far as public opinion goes, and they do. They're not perfect. It's like the. We risk running into the CSI effect, where fingerprints, if you remember CSI, they got fucking fingerprints off of a cheese grater.
Yeah.
So now we would spend a huge portion of our time during drug cases, especially in trial, was explaining why we didn't fingerprint the baggie. And the body cameras are producing the same effect now. If it's not on camera, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And even though the camera here is in your chest forward, and the event happened off to the right, if it's not on there, you're lying.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. When did we all become liars? That we have to have. That's the point of the body cam. It's not to catch you doing shit. It's to prove that we're not lying.
Yeah.
And I have an issue.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's it is. I mean, I can see the double-edged sword of it, and that. But to me, ultimately, I think they're a good thing for that reason. Is that to me, it's like with anything. It's like, well, if you got nothing to hide, then it shouldn't be a fucking problem. And I can see where some cops would be like, fuck, I don't want that on me. And I get an element of like, would you like to be have every fucking movement of yours video recorded? No, I probably wouldn't. But at this point, to the level with which our law enforcement communities have been ostracized and demonized, like if I was a cop, I would want to have one on for that exact reason, is to be like, no, it's not how it happened. Like, I didn't do this, and it's right here on the fucking camera. But looping back into the canine aspect, I've seen a lot of similar occurrences with canine. Do you have any experiences where the body cam has played a huge role in a canine apprehension? Yeah,
I mean, there's a couple of them going on now. I can't really talk about, but one of which the guy who makes the original stop on the car is from another agency, and they don't have body cams, but they have car cameras. So it does kind of show some of the broader picture of it. But the body camera definitely is able to show right up on it some disparities on angles and things like that. That type of stuff does help. My issue with body cameras, where I've always said that, because I don't work the street anymore, that if I had to go back to the street with a body camera on, I'd be fucked in a week. And not from what I do, it's from what I say. So now I cuss.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that I don't believe that I believe you should be professional, but in the middle of a stressful situation, if I say the F word, who cares? Yeah. It's just words. But most departments are zinging guys on that.
That's one thing that I find not even fascinating. I guess it's remarkable in horrible ways more often than not. Is that level of politically correct attitude towards the general public, police officers from departments headship. And, we were talking about the Dallas police chief earlier a couple of years ago that I thought handled that fantastically. But I see so many police chiefs that when something happens and you see them behind the podium, from my perspective, and again, is this fair to make this generalization or this broad sweeping character judgment on them without having met them? Probably not. But the fact is that they're in a position where, you're going to get judged that way. And I see a lot of them are frankly a bunch of spineless fucking assholes that do not back their guys up, that fold like fucking lawn chairs under the pressure of the press. Or even, concerned citizens that disagree with how they handled things. And to me, like, nothing makes me feel better about a police chief in that position of authority that stands up there and says, yeah, our guys did fucking do that. And you know what? Given the opportunity, they'd fucking do it again. Shut the fuck up. Like, you weren't there. Stop judging us on it. Like, why is there none of that? I mean, to me, the only reasonable explanation I can come up with is that police chiefs are generally buddies of fucking mayors, and it's a politics game where very similarly to a lot of military leadership is to even be considered for that position, you've got to blow so many people and kiss so much ass to get into that position to where you've sold your soul 10 times over and you're in a position where you're a fucking yes man and a spineless fuck anyway. Is that what's your take on that?
Yeah, it depends on your agency and how your agency, whether you have set up your government set up where they have to come up through the ranks, or if you can come from outside. One of the biggest problems I see with guys at the top is this fear, absolute crippling fear of being sued. Mm-hmm. I
don't understand.
They see lawsuits around every corner. You cannot effectively do law enforcement worrying about getting that shit.
Yeah.
And there's this false narrative going around about vicarious liability that supervisors can get sued for what you as a street cop do. That's been thrown out so many times out of court, it's not real. If you, as the boss, taught your guy certain real bad things, or get on the radio and gave the order to run the guy over, even though he wasn't doing anything that would justify lethal force, sure.
Yeah.
But you're not responsible for it. They don't think that way.
Yeah.
And they're all worried. Especially what confuses me is guys that become chiefs that can't be fired. Yeah. I mean, civil service, unless they do a crime, they can't be fired. Mm-hmm. And those are the guys you think would stick up for their dudes and be like, prove me wrong.
Yeah.
But they don't.
Yeah.
And on that same thing, I mean, when I first got into this, I was under the impression that, all law enforcement was uber professional, and it was, everybody was there for the right reason, and it's super idealistic and everything else. And it is not. And, and this is not a knock against your average street guy, against the average handler or the average cop or whatever else, but it is directly and squarely aimed at administrators. And, being a vendor and being on this side, not being in law enforcement. So, Eric's been his entire career at one department, right? So that's what he knows. He doesn't know a lot about departments in Oklahoma or Texas, or, I've got dogs, and we got dogs in 13 states. Mm-hmm. And so having to deal with that many administrators, and everyone has a range on what they think it should be. And I spend a ton of time, a lot of my day, talking to administrators saying vicarious liability is bullshit. You can't be afraid to let your guys do their job. You have to trust the process, and you have to trust your handlers. And you have to trust that they've been trained well, that they are mature, and they have good decision-making capabilities. If not, don't get them a dog. Take their gun away, too.
Yeah.
And
no, I mean, it's the same here. You know, I've got dogs all over the place, and it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, sometimes getting asked advice as to, you know, what should I do about this or whatever, and to me, I'm always, you know, I'm flattered to be asked that advice, but on the same token, it's like, God damn, like, you know, who am I to fucking tell you anything?
Yeah.
Number one, but number two is that, you know, just like you said, I mean, to me, like, if you're questioning whether or not this guy should have a dog, or you know, he's done things to where, you know, the entire administration is like, maybe he shouldn't be a cop.
Yeah.
Like, why the fuck is he even in that
and then
position?
the other thing that I run into a lot is, you know, they won't take a civilian's advice. Like, they'll ask your advice or my advice or whatever, and they kind of like weigh it, right? But then they'll turn around and they'll ask some dickhead attorney that's never been a cop, doesn't know fuck all about dogs, and they're like, what do you think? And then I'll see the email, or I'll be part of the conversation, and he'll just start spouting frankly, it's just bullshit. And if I interject and I'm saying, you know, there is so much case law over the last 33 years, and I just start citing cases off the top of my head that says that you're wrong, that it's laughable. Yeah. And I'm like, you guys are taking advice from this guy, but you have a subject matter expert sitting in the room with you telling you that he's wrong and showing you, and you still, and like, I think we give way too much weight to attorneys. I just do. Yeah, no. They're overrated, and they're most of the time almost worthless. Yeah, no, 100%. And, you know, to me, you know, are there experiences that you've had as it relates to canine that highlight, you know, kind of, or all encompassing in terms of what we're talking about, where you can share examples of that? Yeah, you know, we've had some people come to us that want to do a bark and hold policy, which I think is fucking terrible. There was a study out of Florida. Yeah, do we want to explain it? Yeah. I mean, go ahead. So bark and hold in a situation where you turn a dog loose to find somebody that's hiding. You go through your proper procedures, give your announcements, everything else, whether they're in a building or an area search. So the dog theoretically runs up and finds, you know, the bad guy and sits there and barks until you get there. And then you make an arrest. And they do it in an effort to mitigate liability. And they think that it, you know, and the backside of this is that the dog will bite if somebody moves. Now, the people sitting here that you're listening to talk know how bark and hold works. And if you move or if you flinch, the dog's going to bite you. What we ended up finding, and what they ended up finding, is that when you decrease the time that you're going to get the dog out, or the threshold for use of force gets lowered, because they think that they've got more control over the dog. They send the dog, and of course some asshole knows that they're being sought by the cops, and the dog runs up on them, and they flinch. They're like, oh shit, it's a dog, and the dog bites them, and all of a sudden you're biting dudes for misdemeanors. Yeah. And it actually had the opposite effect. And when you explain that to administrators, they're like, oh shit. I'm like, yeah, here's the study that the Florida did. Like, here, read it. It's not me. Like, it's been done already. Yeah. Well, and to me, there's an other side of that coin that's far more dangerous and just, you know, a shitty component to it, which is, if you have somebody that's relatively calm in that scenario, you could very slowly pull out a fucking pistol and smoke the fucking dog, which, you know, has happened on a number of occasions too, you know. And to me, my view is just very simplistic, in that, you know, if you're at a point where you're sending the dog in to find somebody, don't do it unless, you know, they are worth being bit. Like, I mean, it's no different than drawing your gun, pulling the fucking taser out. Like, if you're sending the dog in, it's to fucking find them and neutralize it, you know. And it's still less than lethal. I don't know why that's so fucking complicated. No, once you meet Graham versus Connor, Robinette versus Barnes, like, once you cross those thresholds, it's a done deal. Yeah. Like, you're done. Like, you're going to get bit. There's no reason for a bark. Yeah. I mean,
the sad thing is the administrations that push bark and hold, you tell them that bark and hold is going to get your guy killed. Because the dude, if he just stands there and waits for you to come around, he can shoot you, then your dog, or shoot your dog, then you. They don't care. Yeah. They don't fucking care. Yeah. That part is fascinating. And the thing about, like, when you back up just a little bit to what you were saying about administrations, is people don't get out of law enforcement early because of the work. Yeah. They don't. We get in it because we want to fucking run and gun, and we want to do law enforcement. The workload is not the problem.
Yeah.
It's the bullshit.
Yeah.
And when I was, and you would know this better than anybody, when I was out on the West Coast hanging out with the team guys, working with them, they had guys that were getting out of the teams. And I'm like, man, you guys go through so much. Why are you getting out? Because the administrative bullshit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in most lines of work, I mean, you know, one of the famous adages, most people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. I mean, obviously not always, but some jobs just fucking suck and people are tired of doing it. But you know, the point to that is you know, falls right in line with that. And just like, you know, Ted, you know, dealing with a lot of different departments, same thing here. Like I'm fascinated, whether it's teaching classes at HITS or other national conferences, or dealing with departments as a vendor or whatever, seeing the disparity from department to department, and seeing, you know, some head sheds and leaderships are very, very cutthroat and backstabbing, and, you know, will sell their fucking guys down a river to cover their own ass. And then on the flip side, you got some departments where a chief is a super stand-up guy, or even the canine supervisor, and has his guys back and lets the dogs fucking be used very, very liberally, and leaves that discretion up to the canine officer. And then, you know, there's some in between. There doesn't seem to be a lot of consistency, you know, from group to group. And, you know, as canine people, you know, we can talk about it till we're fucking blue in the face of what the fix is, if there is one. I don't think there is one. I think, you know, basic principles of being a good leader are either there or they're not, and that's what's going to affect that more than anything. But in terms of some collective things you guys can share as it relates to canine training, you know, experiences that you've had that again that highlight to me what's important is for people to understand, you know, what canine handlers and trainers and canine departments go through to certify to get their dogs street ready. If you guys could share some stories from that.
My biggest thing is always, you know, it's just like firearms usage, training in the dogs, whether it's for detection work for explosives and narcotics or finding people, tracking, bite work, everything is all a perishable skill. And I typically find, dealing with a large cross section of guys, that the teams that are successful, like, if you know, it's always interesting because, you know, Eric was talking about a minute ago about how they do canine selection. I've seen some departments that it's seniority based. I've seen some departments that it's interview based, and I've seen some departments that it's a blended part of that. And then I've seen some where they're just like, here's your dog, right? And almost universally, the most successful teams in the last decade or so that I've been dealing with a lot of these guys are the guys that want to be there and that go through a pretty good selection process and were already good, productive cops before they were given a dog. Mm-hmm. If you give a dog to a piece of shit, it's going to make him worse. It just is. There are cops that are lazy. There are cops that suck. There are cops that don't do anything. And there are guys, you know, and I tell people, you know, I say that the most important thing you can have for a canine handler is maturity, because you put in a unique position where they're going to have a lot of opportunity to use quite a bit of force, more so than just about anybody else. And on top of that, it's a daily occurrence. SWAT team is in that position, but they don't get called out on everything. Yeah. And so a canine handler has to be extremely mature. They have to have great decision-making capabilities. And I say, and you know, I also don't mind and would prefer it if they have some use of force issues that were found to be not, you know, to be unfounded, because it shows their willingness to get dirty, to do their job, and
fall on the right side of the decision-making process.
And, you know, when you kind of go through that evaluation, and I've seen some where it's seniority based and they're like, well, I've been here longer. And you're like, well, fine, here's your dog. And they turn out to be fucking terrible. Sometimes that turn out to be good. And of course, the ones where it's just like, here's your dog. And guys like, man, I don't even want the dog. And those guys are terrible too. But I mean, so training and continued training is an extremely important part of the process. And I don't think most departments care, or, I mean, they don't give a shit. They're just like, well, we've already got the dog, and I don't know why he needs to be trained all the time.
Yeah.
And that's a struggle almost universally, I think.
Yeah.
No, and it's weird. Canine, in law enforcement, canine's the only part where that shit happens. So every single thing in police work is governed by court decisions. And the Supreme Court says this, and everybody's like, oh, we have to do this because the Supreme Court says it. Well, the Supreme Court says you got to have a minimum of 16 hours a month of maintenance training.
It's not like we make that up.
Right. They said it, and they just reaffirmed it in Florida versus Harris. Said that's the minimum acceptable standards. If they said that about traffic control guys, they would be doing it. SWAT, they would be doing it. Canine, we don't have the manpower. You're not training for 3 months.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it's absolutely unbelievably asinine. We're lucky. Our department, it's set in your schedule. You're there Wednesday. It's in your schedule for the whole year. But the other guys, other smaller departments, and my whole thing is I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
I don't care what your manpower is. I don't care. Well, if it's in your schedule, it's in your schedule. So set it up. They don't take that part seriously. Only in canine. No other facet of law enforcement is it like that. It's super weird.
I'll flat out scare the shit out of them. I'll just tell administrators that that's the minimum standard, and the only thing that's going to save your ass from liability is proof, and that's training records. And if they don't train, it shows that you don't have a commitment and that you don't care about liability. And all of a sudden they're like, oh God, we got to train. I'm like, yes, you do.
Yeah.
And then they make sure.
Yeah. No,
those experts out there that are working for defense attorneys right now that are former canine guys.
All three of them.
Yeah. One of the guys used to be the head of, I think, New Jersey State Police canine or something like that.
Yeah.
The first thing he tells defense attorneys is make sure you subpoena the records because cops don't keep training records.
Yeah.
Or they're not training.
Yeah. Or they're not training. And he got that from somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've done some expert witness shit on the good guy side, and same thing. It's the first thing I look at is, what are there consistencies or are there inconsistencies? And if all your shit is tight, and especially if there's body cam footage to back it up. And
I have a really good story about that. That's hilarious. One of my good buddies is a defense attorney. I'm not going to mention which district, but a federal defense attorney for the government. If I ever do anything really stupid, this is the guy I'm going to call.
Yeah. I might need his number.
We call that Tuesday.
This guy is like, drugs, guns. The only thing he won't do, he won't represent rapists and child molesters. He refuses to do. So it's an attorney with standards. One of the few.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a case, and he calls me, and he's like, hey, I got a client that got pulled over. I'm like, so? He goes, how many DEA dogs do you think are in Oklahoma? I'm like, one, maybe. I don't know, one. He goes, well, what are the odds of it being at this location at this time in the morning? I'm like, it was a whisper stop. I'm not stupid. And he was like, well, that's besides the point. I'm like, no, it's not. And he was like, well, what are their training records going to look like? I said, they're going to have that they're going to have from the time that dog was procured from the vendor, they're going to have so much shit. They're going to have like the consistency of the dog shit when it got sick. They're going to have vet records. They're going to have an insanely high amount of stuff. You need to look somewhere else to get rid of probable cause. And he was like, oh, I'm going to get them anyway. So they show up with a fucking dolly in a box full, 3 boxes full of 3-ring binders, DVDs. And I was like, I told you. I was like, I don't even need to look at it. You're screwed. Go find something else.
Yeah.
But Eric's right. That's the secret. That's why training is important.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And that, to me, it's unfortunate that it comes to that, but from a technique standpoint, I think, one of the things that I am a big proponent of, not to get too far in the weeds, but, is off leash, non-handler integrated searching for that same reason is that, even the slickest fucking criminal defense attorney, if you've got a dog that's completely off leash and 100% independent of the handler, vacuum cleanering a fucking vehicle and then does a nice independent clean final indication and alerts that the drugs are right here and sits there and stares at us, not looking back at the handler, all that other shit. That's the reality, especially when you're dealing with a jury that doesn't know what the fuck they're looking at.
Right.
When you've got a very clear-cut case of a dog not being influenced by a handler, that that's always going to prove to be far more likely to pass the smell test, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Than a handler blocking and hey, search here,
right.
All the way around the car.
And there is actually a case right now, and I'm not going to mention it, but there's a case right now in federal court that's not specifically a dog case, but it does deal with a federal agent touching some property.
Yeah.
And they are starting to successfully argue that kind of some kind of violation. I'm trying to be vague as possible. So I see a lot of canine handlers do that, and
touching the area.
Touching and, and generally getting in the dog's way and everything else. And, I teach, and I know Eric does too. I mean, we teach get back and let the motherfucker work. Like, just your job is to make sure he'll let you know when he needs your help. And I tell people the alert, the sit and the stare. I mean, that's not for the handler.
Yeah.
That is for defense attorneys.
Yeah.
And that's how I tell it to them. I was like, we do that for you guys because you're so fucking stupid that we have to have something that is so outside the norm that the animal would not do by itself that we have to have your dumb ass be able to understand that there is something there.
Stevie Wonder needs to be able to recognize the final.
Exactly.
Going back to the bite scenario where I recently saw a video where a guy, it was a kid, I mean it was probably a 16-year-old kid or so, takes off running. I don't know if you guys have seen it, it's been all over social media, but kid takes off running, stops, comes back, canine handler's out with the dog's off leash, kid comes and sits down on a fucking curb. And I think he just like moves, and the dog's off leash. The dog runs over there and just fucking nukes his ass. Mm-hmm. And then the handler runs over there and he's fucking pulling up on him. And the dog's like fucking pulling half his arm off. And then, the dog fucking regrips and counters in. And then he chokes him half off and like misses with the fucking leash, lets the dog go. The dog goes and nails him again. And it's just like,
then redirects on the handler.
It couldn't have gone much fucking worse, and seeing shit like that for me, as a trainer and similarly have worked with a lot of departments, so, to see that shit, like, God damn, it's frustrating because it's no different than, one case of, somebody being shot and it's a bad shot and it's a white officer shooting a black guy and it was fucking questionable or whatever. It takes one of those out of, a million fucking plus cops, and in canine handling, it's obviously a much smaller percentage, but you're still talking tens of thousands, in the upwards of 50,000 canine handlers nationwide. Is that it only takes one of those for people to be like, fuck you, canine guy. It makes the whole, one of the military adages, Bob the Bridge Builder, you can build 1,000 immaculate bridges, you suck one cock and you're Bob the cocksucker. That's all it takes,
You're
it's
gay
like
forever.
Yeah, like you're just the ass, like it takes one occurrence like that and to me, again, not to get too far in the weeds, but to me, that's why I'm a strong proponent and believer in good verbal control on a dog in all aspects, not just tactically speaking, obedience-wise, but engaging somebody, outing on them, whatever. And I'm curious to get your guys' take on it.
Well, my thing on that particular bite incident, to me, stresses. So one of the reasons why Ted and I get along so well, and we harp on it a lot on our Working Dog Radio shows, Working Dog Radio, they
we'll edit that out.
Right, God. Is scenario-based training. Now, you could never have pictured that scenario for training. I mean, you can get pretty similar distractions and things like that, but that handler was way in over his head, and definitely didn't know how to act, and his stress definitely went right down his arms to that dog, and so that's why I guarantee if you went back and looked, all they're doing is basic certification fucking bullshit at their training.
Yeah.
We put our handlers through as much stress as possible so that you act like you've fucking been there before. Mm-hmm. Adrenaline does some fucked up stuff to people, as you know, and that guy shit the bed. Yeah. And that was way in over his head. The dog's down originally it was pretty cool, but then when this other kid comes back and the handler's not recognizing that dog he turns and looks a couple times, dude, your dog's about to break. I mean, but I guarantee he's never ever been training wise put in a high stress situation. Yeah. And then it just went to shit after that.
Yeah. No, it absolutely did.
That was when I saw it, I was like, nice dog. Other side of the line, not so good.
Yeah.
And, the dog, and I tell my handlers this on day one of handler school, you can't teach dogs to bite people and act shocked when they do.
Yeah.
They're terrible decision makers. They will lick their own ass and eat cat shit no matter how well trained they are. And ultimately, if you tell them to bite something, they're going to bite it.
Yeah. And sometimes even when you don't.
I mean, that's, so that situation in general, that was and like Eric said, that's a fucked up deal. And that could have been handled. I don't want to be overly critical of that dude, but that was poor handling. The dog was doing what he was taught to do, and apparently so was the handler.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. It might not be on that guy. He might be just showing up for training every week, and they're like, go do this fucking 30-foot track.
Yeah.
And then send your dog. We're gonna do a recall, and then we're gonna do a bite, and we're gonna do a pat down.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and that's one of the again kind of the travesties of technology being what it is that absolutely, like, you have no idea, like maybe that's the dude's third day as a fucking canine handler. To me, that just highlights, like, standards have to be what they are, is that you're not out there, and to me that's the one thing that I think you can always come back to, and this is whether it's canine, whether it's beat cops doing whatever the fuck they're doing, traffic stops, you name it, is that if you as an administrator are in charge of deciding when what the standards are to let guys be out on their own making these decisions, well, God damn it, there should be some better processes in place to ensure that shit like that doesn't happen. Now, for sure, it's easy to sit here and say that. There's a lot of other factors of manpower, and fuck, we only have so many guys, and we've got 13 officers that have less than a year on the department, and like it's better than nobody. Like, sure, and in some cases that's true. In some cases, it would be better to have nobody than some of the people that are out there doing the job, unfortunately. But to me, it fucking pains me to see, canine specifically, because it's what we're all here for, being painted in such a negative light with shit like that. And I know there's a ton of other videos, but
well, yeah, and some of those have been fairly recently. There's one from Washoe County, Nevada. There's obviously the San Diego case, which all revolve around the mythical out, which is what you asked about a minute ago. And I get flack sometimes because I joke and I say outs are overrated. I mean, it's literally the one thing that I can at will do whenever I want. And I can't make him track. I can't make him hunt for dope. If a dog doesn't want to bite, I can't make him do it. I can't make him bite somebody if he's not wanting to be there. And we teach handlers 3 ways to out dogs. All of our dogs have a verbal out. They all have off-leash control. And, we teach a manual removal, which is a lift off or however you want to call it. And then we teach a break off. And I teach them how to use break sticks. I teach them how to use handcuffs to break off. I teach them how to use all kinds of other things. And the reason I do it is exactly for what Eric talked about, is when shit gets weird and you've practiced your verbal out for 2 years and somebody's kicking and screaming under a car and you've yanked them out, you've handcuffed them, because newsflash, dog bites fucking hurt, and people generally don't just lay there. And you go to take them off, and they're continuing to squirm and continuing to move, and they're screaming, "Get the dog off me!" And you're like, "Dog name out," and he doesn't out, and it's on body cam, and now you're fucked because you don't have a perfect one. Instead, you reach down, you take your brake stick, you take your whatever you've got, you grab his collar, you just calmly pop him off, you pull him back, nothing, and it looks clean. You can take the dumbest plaintiff's attorney in the fucking country, and you can show him that and be like, "What about that was out of control?"
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean...
Yeah, I mean, to me, I guess that, what I see, unfortunately, in some realms of the industry is it is an equal imbalance. Like, yeah, I agree, 2 is 1, 1 is none, 3 is better than 2. Like,
right.
Have several methods of being able to do it. There are times, as we all know, where, logistically, you may not be able to get to the fucking dog if it's in duct work or in a fucking attic or, So, for sure, like, to me, yes, verbal is... should be, that should be part of the fucking certification. Like, in high stress environments, in weird positions, like, you should be well versed in that, as well as a manual outing, if you will, should that come to it. Unfortunately, you see a lot of times, in that case where the fucking guy didn't have either. Where the dog's not responding to a verbal out, and he can't get the fucking dog off him, and it just makes everybody look like an asshole. But
yeah, and if you read all the comments in there, nobody's blasting that dog.
Yeah,
everybody's like that handler sucks. He's in over his head. Yeah. Now, on the other hand, you have the dogs that don't engage, and then everybody's like, "Yeah, that dog's a piece of shit."
Well, and I always tell people, what's worse, a dog that won't bite or one that won't out?
Yeah,
and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, well, I mean," so it's like, what's worse, a gun that won't fire or one that looks like it does? You're still gonna get fucking shot. It doesn't matter if you're holding it.
Yeah, no shit. But again, we can reminisce and talk about what's wrong with canine and law enforcement. As we kind of circle it back to wrap it up here, where do we go from here as an industry in terms of as it relates to canine? Where do you guys see in the future the canine industry going, and how that relates to law enforcement?
Well, I still believe we got to push for guys to fucking train at training. Not train, like Ted likes to say, you train 364 days a year for one other day. That's it. That's bullshit. If you're not training for working the street, you are going to have incidents like this that happened to that guy, or the dogs that don't engage, because we never really put the dog in the situation to find out that they probably wouldn't engage, or we ignored it. Canine training day is not just a day for you to not be on the shift. When you come in at 8 o'clock, if it takes you 90 minutes to drink coffee and take 4 shits, you're an idiot. Get your ass out there and try. You should try to see what your dog's going to do. You should want to be there doing training. So when I took over, our previous trainer wasn't like that. We did. I never saw the guy in all the years I was there take a bite. That's a problem. We did some scenarios. We didn't do a lot of problem solving. These training groups that are just handlers, they're fucking it up. Mm-hmm. You gotta get a trainer in there. You gotta hook up with somebody who's training dogs and knows how to problem solve. And it can't be the same fucking stuff every week. You have got to do scenario-based training and find out if your dog's going to do it, and find out what your handler's going to do when you put them under some serious stress. We do a couple scenarios we've done, and we've seen handlers just fucking blank.
Yeah.
And it's okay. We'll work through it, dude, because you're not going to blank again when we fucking do this. Usually it's when we do a scenario where their dog just got shot and they got to fucking do first aid. And they're like, fuck, my stuff is in the car. They forget that they have a dude right here they can ask to go get my fucking stuff. Yeah. Just little things like that. Things we work through, high stress. Guys, they got to start doing more unknown hides for your dope, unknown hides for your explosives, especially unknowns for your explosives.
Yeah.
And challenge the guys, man. And the handlers should want to be challenged. They should want to do it. It's not about getting a fucking take-home car and getting to leave an hour earlier than everybody else. And I mean, it is kind of not having to work with shithead other human beings. I'll give the guys that part.
Yeah.
Right. But you got to take the shit seriously. Yeah. And if you're going to a training group and your department makes you go there and it's just certification-based training, you got to go beg them to let you go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You got to.
Yeah.
The biggest takeaway that I took from that is that I need to shit faster.
Correct.
Yes. So 90 minutes is too long for coffee and shitting.
Right.
Fuck, I gotta reorg my schedule.
We started at 8 o'clock. By 8:20, 8:30, we were out the door.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we need to focus on coming up, there's a big case in Colorado that's going to be decided by their state Supreme Court, People versus McKnight. It's not actually a drug case. I mean, it's not actually a dog case. It is questioning the validity of Colorado state law of recreational marijuana. And because the dog is related to it, I suspect that the Colorado State Supreme Court is going to uphold their own law because that's their job. If they do, and the feds do something about it, because at that point we have a constitutional question, and they're basically begging somebody to make a decision. I'm interested to see where it goes moving forward with the legalization, the impending legalization. Because I mean, in Oklahoma we just passed medical, I guess, in June, and then now recreational is already on the ballot, and as of the recording date right now, they're 6,000 signatures shy of having it on the November ballot for recreational. And, there's some provisions of that I think are terrible, like, cops aren't going to, or DAs aren't going to be allowed to use blood draws to determine whether it's a DUI or DWI for marijuana, which I think is fucking stupid. And so on the dog side of that, though, we have to be better, which is sort of what Eric was saying. We have to be better with moving forward and starting to encompass all of these weird, mishmashed bullshit laws that have been passed or haven't been passed or are going to be passed, or the decisions that are going to come down or may come down or whatever else. And we have to start forming, I think, a more cohesive standard in the industry for detection and for handling in general. I'm definitely not advocating a federal standard by any means, but I think by and large the national organizations, with the exception of one, are largely sort of bullshit. And I just say, the certifications mean that you can do your job. You can't do it well, and you definitely can't do it effectively. It just means that you can fucking do it. And if that is your standard, you have a fucking problem.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the standard is everything.
Right.
I mean, whether it's a selection test, whether it's a training pipeline, you name it. And I agree. I would say I do think there should be a federal standard. Do I think it should be mandated by a federally funded, i.e., a government-run organization? No, not necessarily. I think, no different than some of the national detection organizations, which I won't name for a couple different reasons, but because of their association with different government agencies. But my point is that, to me, there does need to be a universal fucking standard, because right now there are a handful of different groups, and I don't see I don't see any one of them by itself that is, the clear cut, like, yes, this is for sure everything that you need. I see holes in all of them, frankly, but I think some are better than others. But to me, to avoid shit like this and to have some continuity, within the canine industry as it relates to law enforcement, I do think that there should be no different than there is with the firearms industry, or fucking passing the bar as a fucking lawyer, or med boards as a doctor. I mean, for my experience in terms of my background, the selection process that is SEAL training coupled with advanced training, and then your chief's board to actually get your trident to become a SEAL, that process weeds out so many fucking people that the byproduct of that is generally pretty fucking high. And to me, like, that is the rub with everything, is that you can't have shitty standards and pencil whipped fucking certifications and things of that nature and expect to have good product flowing out there. But as we wrap things up here, I'd like to end on a positive note. You skeptical of that? Yeah, I don't see that happening. I would love for both of you to share, if there's one that sticks out in your mind as the best experience as a canine handler, canine trainer, just within the canine industry. Is there something that sticks out as being kind of the best experience that you've had with a dog? It doesn't involve peanut butter.
All right, I'm gotta go then.
Yeah.
No,
never mind.
God, we have so much work, and we get to do one thing that I always tell a story about is pretty cool. So the last dog that I worked before I left for the SEAL program was named Loco. Loco was he is a Belgian Malinois. He's retired, enjoying his life. He was not a great tracking dog. Like, I always told people, if this is the mother of all tracks, we're calling someone else in, because Loco wasn't all that great. And I got called to a neighboring agency. It was like 90 degrees. And they're like, listen, these people, they found a suicide note for their teenage son and his lovebird girlfriend. And they've been gone like 2 hours. And they're afraid. They went right down their street. They were seen walking into this field right here. And I'm like, oh, fuck. I go, 2 hours is 90 fucking degrees. And I got Loco, who was a hunting machine, more eye and air scenting than anything. First Malinois we ever had at the police department. I'm like, I'd really like to do some cool shit with this fucking dog, but he wasn't it. And as far as the tracking goes. So I'm like, I always tell the guys, don't tell them no. Tell them you'll try.
Yeah.
Give it a shot. Or if the helping agency has goobered up your whole fucking track, you can jump on their shit. So I get out there and we start tracking, and I'm like, actually, it's doing pretty good. This isn't too bad. So we're going, and I'm because I can read him. I see the difference between the ground and then he's air scenting. And we end up going 1.5 miles through. We found a giant dead fucking eagle or hawk or some shit he tried to fucking eat. And then we go over here and we go down in this culvert and we find their clothes. So they're backpacking all their clothes. I'm like, fuck, man, we're actually going to do this. Get tracking, and sure enough, man, we end up finding the two of them.
No shit.
And to me, all the bite stories are great. I got to bite a lot of people, a lot of bad fucking human beings, but But finding these two kids, and they started to run. I'm like, fuck, don't run. I'm not going to send the dog. You fucking lovebirds. They didn't. They stopped. But to me, it's one of those feel-good stories for me that stood out pretty good.
Yeah.
Tracking, those kids, because they were going to do it.
Yeah.
They were just trying to figure out how.
Have you, when was that?
That was in 12.
Have you followed up with them? Or they still, they didn't do it obviously then?
No, I never did follow. I kept track of it for just a little bit of time and then life.
No, it's fucking great. I mean, to me, it just highlights the magnificence with which these dogs are integrated with our society and the impact that they have. It's fucking good stuff.
Yeah, so speaking of the impact, like, I kind of live in a bubble. I have my close friends, and that's who I talk to, and I go to work and I interact with my kennel tech, and we've got some people that kind of cycle through sometimes, and I interact with Scott, my partner, and he's even more antisocial than I am. He's an old 7 Special Forces guy and like old SWAT guy, and I mean he's like that, like doesn't like talking, and so I don't interact a lot with people that are outside of the industry, and if I do, it's not on a professional level, it's just they're my friends. And we had a memorial service for a dog that died in a community that supported canine like big time. And it was crazy because there was other handlers there, like people I didn't train and dogs that they didn't get from me. But it was the weirdest fucking experience because I think I take for granted what I do. I don't think it's a job obviously, but I know I'm lucky to be where I'm at, especially given my background. And, Scott always tries to keep me in perspective, like why we're doing things and why we do what we do. And it was super sobering to have just random ass people walk up to me. And it's not like I'm standing there with a t-shirt on or anything. I'm just standing there in a black polo and jeans and just a normal dude that looks like a tattooed shitbag just standing there. And so people come up to me and, they're like, thank you for training the dog. I'm like, do what? I'm like, I wasn't even the handler. And
I was expecting you to say, didn't I arrest you last week?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, people, and these weren't cops. These are just like, Mom and, Betty and John that own like whatever. And, I don't know these people from anybody. Yeah. I don't even know how they picked me out. And it was a super humbling experience and kind of reinforced, despite all the bullshit that I deal with or that the cops deal with or my handlers deal with. And, kind of at the end of the day, I didn't go into law enforcement and I didn't go into the military, but this is like kind of my way of at least still helping my community. And, and it was crazy. I mean, people were like, thank you for training. And they still have, they have their 2 new dogs are from us. And they were like, thank you for training the 2 new ones. And I'm like, dang, all right. I mean, you're welcome. I didn't even know what to say. And Alicia's standing there, and she like slapped me on the back. She's like, you're supposed to say thanks. And I'm like, I mean, I'm like, thank you. And I'm like, you really need to be thanking these guys, the guys that have the leash, not me. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that was a cool experience for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean, to me, those are both awesome stories. And again, just highlight, all the great shit that you guys do. I know, you came from Ohio, you came down from Oklahoma, and to me, to have, all the guests, but obviously you're the 2 sitting here to come here and take time out of your busy schedule to talk about things that are relevant in our society and important and impactful and at the end of the day, they're the fabric that weaves our country together. And so I'm honored to have you guys and all of my guests come and share your experiences with me. I love the work that both of you guys do, and thank you for coming here. If I could get you guys to just plug what you have going on now, where people can find you, both your companies, Working Dog Radio, any social media handles that you want to pass that people can check you out and get Working Dog Dry Goods, you name it.
All right. I'm at, most of my stuff's on Instagram as far as social media goes. For my business, Van S K9, VANESS, the letter K, the number 9. I put a lot of content on there. You'll see a lot of stuff that we do at training. It's more for, then people watch it and kind of see the scenarios and the fun stuff we do. And I'll throw a couple personal things in there every once in a while. That's where I do most of it. I don't post a ton on Facebook. Facebook's a necessary evil that I despise. But I'm not on there a lot.
Did you hear that, Zuckerberg?
Yeah, it's Facebook is a part of the American culture that's probably bigger than anything there is going, and it's fucking crazy. But anyways, I'm not on there all that much. But Van S Canine on Instagram, and then the Working Dog Radio, which as you can see our little shirts. Is really, really becoming a great thing for us. We're having a good time with it. It's all working dog stuff. It's on Instagram, it's at working_dog_radio. And then we have workingdogradio.com and Working Dog Radio on Facebook. And Alicia, who is the co-owner with the two of us, runs most of the social media stuff, or not most, all of it. She bitches at Ted and I. Hey, fuckheads, I need content. We give them videos. We give her pictures and stuff. She puts it up. She runs all that stuff. If you contact us, that's who you're talking to, as Alicia. But we're having a good time with that. And I'm really super happy you had us down here. Your guest list has been amazing. Yeah, I'm just honored to be a part of it.
I'm on Instagram at Ted_Summers. That is basically all work related. And then we also have Torchlight Canine, letter K, the number 9, on Instagram and on Facebook also. And of course the Working Dog Radio, and then we also have Working Dog Dry Goods, which is the equipment side. So all the muzzles that you see painted on everywhere, those are all Alicia, and that's just at Working Dog Dry Goods and workingdogdrygoods.com. And so on the Instagram stuff, on Torchlight and on my personal page, you'll see a lot of stuff that I'm doing either through detection or the scenario based stuff. That Eric and I talk so much about, and that's usually the easiest way to get a hold of us, and it's usually going to be me or him answering, so no dick pics, I guess.
Well, unless...
Never mind.
Oh, sorry, I was going to mention.
That's a nice cock you got there, mister.
Well, it's like
Superman
Eric be like, oh, that's a nice one.
And we've come full circle.
Right.
Good shit, gentlemen. Well, as always, thank you guys for joining again. Most definitely to the listeners out there, this show would not exist without your support and unwavering listenership. Is that a fucking word?
Mm-hmm.
It should be.
It is now.
If it's not, choke yourself. I got to throw that in at least once every time. So, but anyway, for me again, it's near and dear to my heart. Obviously, with what I do for a living and what my background is. To bring canine guys on regularly and really showcase, the great work that the industry does and the guys that are in the trenches doing it and getting some perspective other than just my dumb ass talking about it, to round it out and get some other flavor from different parts of the country and different elements of the industry for you guys to experience and hopefully ultimately appreciate. So thank you guys for listening. And as always, until next time, this is Mic Drop.